The Westford Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 8th, 2023. The first item on the agenda is open forum. Do any members of the commission have items for open forum? Marilyn?
Just, I didn't know if the rest of the commission knew that this, we had our meeting with the CPA and our application was approved. So it's going forward in terms of the Conservation Trust. There'll be a warrant review from the selectmen and a warrant review from the FinCom where they take positions, and I will be presenting both of those.
Thank you.
Then it has to be passed at town meeting.
Mm-hmm. Matt, do you have anything in open forum?
I have quite a few. Just as a point of order, the public hearings that were originally scheduled for last meeting on January 25th were continued due to inclement weather, so those public hearings will be opening tonight. Additionally, the MACC annual conference is scheduled to be held virtually between February 28th and March 9th. If any member is interested in attending any of the sessions, to please let me know. We do have some funding available. Also, the fundamental courses are being virtual webinars are being performed to
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, so if people are interested in refreshing
I have
something
four
that
only. I never finished
yeah,
it.
I mean,
I never
if
did the
there's
eight, I
anything
did
anybody's
four.
interested in, do reach out. We can certainly find some funding for that. And that's
Might
all.
want to tell Noel.
Yeah, I was gonna follow up with him on that one. And
Or
last-
both of you, really?
Potato.
well, I saw there was an email from their director this year that commissioners who've served less than 1 year were eligible for a scholarship. You know, I think there were 20 of them available. So yeah, I think you just
Not available.
missed it. Yeah, but we can find funding if you're interested. And then lastly, I am taking a winter plant identification for wetland boundary determination workshop through the UNH Professional Development and Training. The cost for the seminar is $349. If the commission is amenable, I'd request authorization to expend $349 for the 2-day course from the wetland fee receipts.
Can I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
There you go.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And that's all.
Do any members of the audience have items for open forum? To the microphone, let us know who you are. You can raise it.
Think I can do it?
It picks up pretty well.
There we go. Is that okay?
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Marco Laylor. I live at 105 Concord Road. I am here tonight as a citizen, and although my comments may reflect some of the sentiments of my colleagues on the Agricultural Commission, which I chair, the following comments are purely my own. Firstly, I want to thank each of you for all the important work you do in balancing the needs of the natural world and the desires of we modern Homo sapiens. It's a tough job, and you do it well. Every time I am hiking a trail in town or across a snow-covered field, like the conservation field on Hildreth Street, one of my favorite haunts, and I come across the breathtaking wing markings of an owl diving into the snow for a vole or a mouse, or I come across a similar thrilling riddle left in the snow by a hawk or a fisher or a coyote, my heart fills with joy knowing these animals have a home in Westford. So I thank you for all you do to ensure that they do indeed have a place here. I come before you tonight to share my thoughts on several of the concerns and requests that have come before you in the past several years. From my privileged and humble perch as a member of the Agricultural Commission, several of these concerns have passed through our commission before being addressed and remedied by you. Some have even originated from our commission members themselves. These concerns and requests run the gamut from concerns about biodegradable landscape fabric that doesn't appear to biodegrade and may on occasion blow up into the trees, to the issue of fencing. both the 4-foot fence on the back edge of the farmer's field, and more recently, with the community garden itself requesting that part of its fencing be permanent to save time and volunteer hours. In all of your decisions, I have felt that you were fair and very accommodating. In fact, I admired your ruling on the 4-foot fence at the back edge of the field. If I remember correctly, we were informed that you chose to have a standard of orderliness that one might expect to find on an average small New England farm. That perspective was and still feels on its face very fair and accommodating. That image has stayed with me and helped me as I too assess some of the concerns and requests that confront me on the Agricultural Commission. However, lately I have come to question that standard. If it is indeed a standard, please, I don't want to assume you have a template for every issue that comes before you. I know you don't. And my knowledge of your work is limited to what I've witnessed on the Agricultural Commission. So tonight, I just wish to say that I think you could fairly and accurately demand more of us humans. You could require that all farmers that lease the Dave Farm Field site adhere to standards that speak to the best and most idyllic of farming standards. Most farmers would welcome the guidelines to remove fencing or debris that is not only unsightly or unhealthy for humans, but also for wildlife. As you are well aware, any structure that is not natural will obstruct, confuse, and potentially kill wildlife. For example, every year on my humble homestead, my 4-foot electric chicken fence kills at least one songbird, and I only keep them up for about 4 months. And I think the mythic image of the small New England farm as a somewhat untidy place is probably an image from the worst of times in agriculture. Most small farmers and business owners I know and respect keep a really tight ship and make room for wild neighbors. I have been blessed to have been part of all the volunteer-run organizations that operate at the Graniteville site, the community garden, the community apiary, and our newest cut flower farmer neighbor, Flowers to Empower. I want to assure you that you, the Conservation Commission, are held in the highest regard. It is because of your generosity of spirit and deep knowledge and caring that all of these organizations have thrived. Indeed, the Graniteville site is truly one of the most beloved, cherished, and dare I say, magical places in all of Westford. And I can tell you, we human volunteers are willing to work a little more, think a little more creatively, and celebrate that our extra efforts will allow our wild neighbors to thrive. So, I come here tonight to encourage you not to hesitate, to challenge us to be better stewards of the land. Don't hesitate to revisit your accommodating decisions if they reveal themselves to be less than ideal for the mink, the river otter, the gray fox, and the barred owl. We are ready to live up to and match your generosity of spirit. Thank you for your time.
Any more items for open forum? Okay, moving on to our other 7 p.m. agenda item. We have an appointment with Flowers to Empower. Okay. Mark, you want to help with that?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. And we're just really excited to be here to talk to you about all that we've accomplished and all that we've learned from the land that you've given us for Flowers to Empower. My name is Matarika. I'm here with some of our fellow farmers, Gianna, Madeline, and Elena, and we are really excited to talk to you about all that we've learned. So firstly, we had to construct our garden, and for this, we primarily wanted some pathways where we could walk, and we also wanted some places where we could kind of walk in between where we had our crops. So firstly, we put down some cardboard boxes just so that we would have a platform to build off of, and then we laid down our mulch on top of our cardboard. And then we also used landscaping fabric to make it a little bit easier to handle the weeds. And then we cut holes into our landscaping fabric for our seeds, and then we planted our flowers. We also put up some fencing around just to keep the critters away from our flowers. And throughout the process, we did learn that we tended to have rabbits come underneath, and they would go under the fence to get to our crops. So we got some chicken wire and went under the soil just to keep them away. In addition, for our sales, we wanted to create some stands, and so all of us farmers, we got together to paint these stands where we could sell our flowers on roadsides and at different locations. We also had two wonderful women from the Dahlia Society visit us and give us many, many tips on how to care for our flowers and our dahlias especially. And in addition to that, we set up the hoses in our garden, just different ways that we could water our plants. Yeah.
Now that we have a garden set up, the seeds that we planted began to grow. So some of the flowers that we planted were sunflowers, which we used as a focal flower, which is the main flower of the bouquet. So we used a lot of sunflowers, and then we had some amaranth, dahlias, zinnias, cosmos, nigella, bachelor's buttons, and calendula. All those flowers were used mostly as fillers and floaters, which are the extra flowers to make the bouquet look really full. And then in that first picture, we have our first seedlings, which were very fun to see because we had worked so hard on planting and doing all the cutting of the landscape fabric and everything that Matarika said before. And so those were our first seedlings, and it was very nice to see them come up finally.
That's when the rabbits showed up.
A few weeks later, all our plants started to grow. Our flowers began becoming like budding, and we have in that picture over there, the one to the left is a sunflower actually beginning to almost blossom. So it was really nice to see all of the plants really start to like pop. Those are some of our first blooms. We had a lot of sunflowers and zinnias, and so the left and right pictures were both zinnias starting to bloom. The middle one is a sunflower just starting to pop, which was very fun when the sunflowers and all the flowers would just pop, because it was like you'd go one day and you wouldn't see anything, but then the next day you'd come back and they were all beautiful and blooming. So that was one of our first blooms. And that was when these pictures are some of our flowers in full bloom, when we had all our flowers blooming, and we had so many flowers. At times we even had too many, but it was really nice because all of our work paid off, and we had so many beautiful flowers to sell and make into bouquets. And here are a few more pictures of flowers that we grew.
So that is one of the pictures of one of our marketing meetings. So we had marketing meetings to learn how to make bouquets and we taught others how to make bouquets. These are more of us, so you can see we have our focal flowers in a pile, the sunflowers, and we have girls assembling bouquets. We also have a picture of a vase of flowers at Muffins on Main. So we had sales stands to sell our flowers. We had self-service stands around town where people could just pick up a bouquet and leave some money. We also had a stand at the garden. We also had stands where we would like stay there and sell the flowers. We had one at Muffins on Main a lot. These are our numbers. We sold 605 bouquets. We raised $10,162, including donations. For our expenses, we had $4,972.42. Mine donated from 2 local charities was $2,000, and our number of farmers was 26. So at the end of the season, we also donated money back to the community since we got a lot of our money from the community to start. We donated a total of $2,000. We donated $800 to the Westford food pantry, $380 to the Westford House Rabbit Network, $440 to the New House Wildlife Rescue, and $380 to Westford Remembers.
So after all that hard work, we went on some adventure trips. So the first one we went on was Chatham Bars Inn in Brewster. This was a lot of fun. We learned a lot about how to arrange bouquets and what they looked like and how to weed, of course. Yeah. We also went to the beach in Brewster to have a little fun. We found this like really cool like shell thing from an animal. I don't know, it was pretty interesting. We had fun there. We also went to Boundless Adventures, which is like a ropes course, and we got out of our comfort zone there a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. We also went camping at East Boston Camps. We learned how to start a fire with help from our leaders, and it was really good for a leadership activity. We also went to the event Carve for Carson, and we set up a maze, and it was a really great activity for the kids there. We also went to Westfest, which we don't have pictures for, but that was also a nice activity that we did in Westford. We also went canoeing, and that taught us a lot how to travel around in the water with our paddles and canoe. That was fun. And then this is us in our garden. We were harvesting, making bouquets, and cutting flowers. So overall, we learned how to cut flowers, and we learned different types of varieties. We learned how to make bouquets and interact with customers and support women in a business. And we're looking forward to the new year, for our new season and everything we learned before to apply it to this new year. So thank you so much for an amazing year. To our farmers, volunteers, our sponsors, you guys, thank you for the land. It's been incredible. This is our picture.
Congratulations on your success.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Do you guys have any questions?
Do you have any idea how many farmers you're going to have next year?
What do you guys think?
More.
Definitely a lot more.
We've had a lot of interest.
Good.
That's great.
Sounds like it worked out great. It really did.
And you had a lot of fun.
We did have a lot of
That's
fun.
important. Good.
Thank you for providing such a great report too. We don't always get to see the results of what happens. So this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yep.
much.
It was nice that you gave back to the community the way you did. So very nice to donate back to the community. Very nice.
Well done.
Excellent. Thank you.
You make us proud.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Would you indulge us in a photo with the Conservation Commission members?
Oh, sure.
Would you mind, so we could report back to the rest of our group and share our
Sure. They
experience?
want to come around the table or
Yeah, if you guys want to scoot around the back.
spread yourselves around? Buddy?
Watch out for the wires. You guys did great. You really did. It looks like it was a class too, huh?
It absolutely was. We did a lot of new things.
Yeah. Before I take a picture, I just want to show you my t-shirt.
There we did.
All right, say bouquet.
Okay.
sure one of them's good.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent, great job.
Okay. Moving on to our 7:10 PM agenda item.
Thank you.
We have a continued public hearing for Franklin at 31 Bridge Street.
Don't see Chris here, but we did receive a existing conditions plan that was submitted to the commission. I need to go out and confirm the wetland delineation in the upcoming weeks. Also, needs to address DEP's comments originally for compliance with 310 CMR 10.574. So I know that is, I think this is a good progress. Progress has been made, this is the existing conditions plan that's been a year in the making, so.
So you were actually out there taking a look?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you
I
just
haven't-
got the plan, okay.
We got the plan. I
All
need
right.
to schedule to go out and confirm the wetland, if the commission has.
We have a whole batch of good weather coming up, so.
That's all about it.
Jim?
On the plan, there's a lot of, just indicated as metal storage boxes, usually around 30 to 35 feet from the wetlands. There's never anything about the contents. I'd be curious what's in them. If it's innocuous stuff like wood or dirt or rocks or something like that, I'd be fine.
Those metal trailers, we looked at them that one time when we were out on the site.
I'll follow up,
I don't know,
during the site visit to
Okay.
confirm that those, because that was tied to the enforcement, because
Yeah.
there was a jet ski in one.
That's
And
right. I remember that, now that you're saying it.
I think that's been removed,
But there's a
so
lot of these metal storage boxes.
I'll certainly.
Sure you look in each one?
Yes. But if the commission, we can continue it 2 weeks to the meeting on the 22nd. I'll make sure to get out there by then to review the
Okay.
delineation.
Okay, continue this to the 22nd?
Motion made, can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So continue to the 22nd. Moving on to our 7:15 PM agenda item, it's continued a public hearing for Perkins at Bolton Circle.
Table and microphone. I'm back.
Bring you up to speed from what's happened the last time I was here, real quick. We had a request for determination on the table, and we said in that up to 8 trees might be at or within the 100-foot buffer. The direction was to come out and measure them, every tree. Matt helped me do that. In fact, he came out relatively shortly after that meeting, and there were exactly 8 trees that were either at or just inside the buffer. So we amended our request for determination. We took all of the 8 trees out of the request. So anything that was inside the buffer is out. The only exception is what I want to talk to you about tonight, which is at your suggestion, you said if some of the trees are compromised, and a botanist backs that up, that's possibly a way to take care of those. And of the 8, 2 of the trees inside the buffer were in fact compromised. One was hit by lightning, and one is rotting from the core out. And the arborist did come in and wrote a report, and I gotta put my glasses on for this, but he basically said if either of these trees were to fail or split, it is almost certain to cause serious property damage to the structures, and more importantly, potential harm to people. And if we were to do nothing and the trees fell over on their own, even if they didn't hit a structure, they're gonna wipe out a lot of the undergrowth that's in the wetland area. I mean, there's a lot of young trees. These are big enough, they'll just destroy up to a handful of trees each. So submitted a revised request for determination, submitted the arborist report, and now we're just talking about these 2 trees. So that's all I got.
Comments or questions from members of the commission?
I read the letter, I saw the trees, that's typically what we would require. They do seem to be compromised.
Yeah, the only,
Doing all that work.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for doing all that
Oh,
work.
no, I'm happy to help. In fact, I learned a lot. I'm kind of glad I went through the process, honestly.
the only thing that struck me from the letter was the talk about, oh, and actually I was looking at, the arborist letter, was he talked about leaving the stumps at grade. And a lot of times what we've started doing is having them leave like a 10-foot section so that that rotting tree provides habitat, for birds.
We did that recently off of Dunstable too, where the guy had 5 whites. I think he took 3, or took 2 down completely, and the other 2 or 3, he left, about 10 or 15 feet of it standing. So, maybe we can do something like that where we take them, but we leave a portion of it standing.
One other thing we talked about that you mentioned was planting something in its place. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, we would want you to plant replacement trees, not necessarily in the same location.
That was my question, inside or outside the buffer?
I mean,
Typically, we try to say in the vicinity of what's
Yeah.
being taken down.
Yeah.
So you would want the
We wouldn't
buffer
want
dis-
it, too
disturbed.
far away. Usually it's like within 5 or 10 feet of, where the tree is that we're taking down.
Yeah, where you
That's
can,
not gonna get
where
too
you
big.
can
Okay.
dig a big enough hole to put the root ball in.
Okay,
So it
and
doesn't have to be right back in the same place.
Matt did provide us a website with local species of plants that might be acceptable. So, we do something in the springtime for a couple of plants.
yep, so if I may, 2 suggested conditions were, replant with native species, to be confirmed by me within the first growing season, and then also, to Margaret's point, leave a 10-foot standing section of the trunk, as woodpecker habitat.
Now, I want to come full disclosure, and I'm going to get in trouble for doing this, but I'm an honest person. Marquee Tree Service came out and cut down the trees because they were on site. They gave us a day rate, and it would have cost an additional $1,500 to have them come back and revisit the site. So they're, the
So I
10
got no standing butt log.
Right, why did this happen after we talked with you about it?
It was, timing is the only issue. That was it. And I'm being completely honest. That's what happened.
Yeah, well,
maybe
you
we
wouldn't be
could
able to
require more
comply
trees
with our,
planted.
request.
Well,
But no, at least it's good to know now, and I appreciate you coming forward and.
but
and
I
letting us know.
always did plan to take up your suggestion to plant trees in their stead.
You go over that list so that the,
Yeah, I mean, and do increase 2 to 4, or 2 trees, 2 larger shrubs, so that,
all right, but why
something.
don't you give him a list and then agree with that list, and then we can be okay with it.
And, again, inside the general 5-foot range of where the trees were. And it doesn't matter that we disturb the buffer zone, right? We're okay with that.
You mean for the planting?
For the planting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that it
Yeah,
might
it's
take a
limited.
So
a
these 2 that were in
machine
the
might
buff,
have to come in and
Already cut the
disturb
trees down, right?
the trees.
You weren't
But
concerned
that was all
about the
by
buffer zone
crane.
then,
That was totally by crane, so there's no disturbing of the wetlands,
except the trees are gone.
yes.
so the stump is still
That's
there.
a disturbance.
He cut the stump at grade, or
Stump is.
he's not coming
I'd
back
say the
to,
stump is
he's
about it.
not coming back to grind it, is he?
No, we weren't gonna grind anything we cut.
And what happened to the tree itself?
They mostly got shredded. The top 30 feet of the trees get shredded, and then the rest got put on a logging truck and
Truck and
taken
taken away?
somewhere. I
'Cause
don't know where.
sometimes we chop those up and we leave them in place, depending.
Yeah.
We would lay them out there.
I think Marquis has a service that buys the mulch and does something with it. I'm
It's
not
not the
sure.
same thing.
Is where a determination had not yet been issued, is the contractor or the homeowner responsible for doing what in effect is unpermitted work at that point?
Yes.
I'm just wondering whether we want to send a letter to Marquis Tree reminding him.
No, it's not Marquis' fault, it's ours. Mine.
No, but he's, well,
Right, he's on the hook, I mean, he still did it, I mean, it's,
did he ask you if you had been given permission at that point?
I don't believe that question ever came up, no.
Okay, and it just, some of this is, we're not gonna
It's
find him.
frustrating.
It's
Yeah,
just,
you know,
it's-
it's
No,
frustrating.
and I apologize, it was the stupid
Was
thing
it,
to
was
do.
it after, was it the interim between the 25th and now?
It was the third week in January, when it was that?
that's before the 25th.
Yeah, that would have been before.
It just,
Yeah, well after the fact.
we're working an awful lot with contractors who don't think to ask the homeowner, who sometimes don't follow DEP.
I think what
Stuff.
happened that day was that the marquee, the owner of the company, arranged for the contract. His guys came out with the crane and did whatever. And so it wasn't real, Marquis was unaware. His guys on site are just
Yeah.
wielding saws.
Yeah, the only one aware was you.
Yeah, but we've got to say something, because, you know, it's just,
We have problems when people
Yeah.
come to us after they've done something.
No, and I understand that, and I,
It's essentially a plea of ignorance. I didn't know it was
No.
within 100 feet. I didn't know we weren't supposed to do this. But you were before us. We talked to you about it.
Yes.
You knew exactly what had to
Yes.
happen before anything happened to those trees. And you went and cut them anyway.
and my expectation, I apologize, was that we were gonna replace the trees as we talked about. My
Yeah,
mistake.
some of this is, I think, my thought is to send a letter to Marquis, and this is just,
Maybe
let
we should
him know
make
that
this-
we pay attention to these things. We're
We
glad
need
to,
to ask a standard question before they do any work.
yeah,
anywhere.
that, you know, that we take a hands-on approach to this. We're very glad if he has questions, he can call Matt Salem. It just, we really don't want people,
I don't think this should be an RDA anymore. I think it should be a violation.
yeah.
well, it's,
I'm not.
you know, I like the fact that we want to send a letter, it's good. But folks need to understand, if they're doing work in the buffer zone, it's a permitted activity that, you know, it needs us to vote on it and approve on it, approve
is
it
there
before
also
it
an-
can take place. And somehow it just,
Does an
the
RDA,
conversation isn't happening.
is an RDA also subject to an appeal?
Yes,
Okay.
an RDA can be appealed. I mean, an enforcement order also can be appealed.
RDA isn't even applicable anymore because the work that was in the RDA has been done to some extent, or it wasn't applicable to the trees
Yeah.
that are outside the
It's
buffer,
only applicable to the two trees that,
that have been disappeared.
yes.
So, I was gonna say, moving forward, a note, maybe a general note to all of them, not just Marquis. As the expectations before you cut things down, I'm not sure. And the other thing is, what can we do in place of that to give us more than we would have had before? To
Well, all I
make up-
gotta
to make
say
up
is,
for it.
these folks knew that
I
they're
know, but-
going through the process, and it still happened. You know, I understand that Marquis was out there and probably should have asked questions, but, you know, people just should have stepped back, and as a matter of convenience, it happened. And it was a matter of convenience, and that kind of bypasses the process, and that's the part that I have difficulty with. Because, you know, we're process-driven, and all of what we do, whether it's a notice of intent or a request for determination or what have you, you come before us, we make a determination, I think we're pretty fair, but you follow the process. And, you know, people taking it upon themselves to make that determination before we have, kind of skirts it and just isn't the process. You know, it certainly doesn't meet the spirit or the intent of what we're trying to achieve.
Then I'm the one in trouble, it's not Marquis, so it's my
Not that.
problem.
So I'm not, you know, I'm not quite sure what to do, you know. We have fined people in the past, or, you know, projects for, you know, moving ahead and doing things without getting our express, you know, permission. You know, we could do that here, we could issue a fine.
Or change the way we ask for plantings, maybe we ask for more.
We could ask for more plantings too,
I would rather go that
Instead
route.
of the fine, use that money towards planting.
towards
I
some
would rather
additional
go
planting.
to-
Yeah, I would rather do that too. I think that'd be better
So
for
maybe
the
Matt can
environment.
work out something with him about what.
But,
Well,
when I say that though, okay, I wouldn't want that to be the norm.
course
In
not.
this particular
Right.
instance, it's like, okay, we're in a situation and we have to come to resolution. But I wouldn't want somebody taking it upon themselves and say, well, you know, the Cushman said, you know, we cut down these trees, but before we really got permission, and instead of paying a fine, you know, we put it towards extra trees. I wouldn't want to have that be seen as the way it's going to be dealt with in the future. That's the way we're going to deal with it in this particular instance, if we vote to do that.
But I think this is the first time I've heard of something like this.
Yep, same here. I
So-
think we should do it.
So with that, I wouldn't worry about people using it as a standard, but I'd like to look at resolution of this.
I think
and
we
that
should
to
move
me
this
would
into
be-
a enforcement order instead of an RDA.
I'm not willing to go.
We don't have to, if the intent of the commission is not to impose a fine, but to maybe to change the conditions, like additional plantings or something like that, we could do that as part of an enforcement order too.
Well, I think we leave the RDA as standing, but we can do it in an enforcement order in addition to the RDA.
Like a friendly enforcement order when we just, help
Yeah.
people out and just, we do it, but it ensures that we get those plantings.
Yeah.
And that we know that, they've taken.
Okay, that would work for me.
Mhm.
Okay, that would.
That work for you, Matt?
Yeah, I can work with that if the commission.
Explain it.
Yep,
Say it
and,
fully.
right, I mean, and it's just what does,
How many?
do you want me to issue the enforcement order tomorrow? Do you want me to draft the enforcement order for next meeting?
We just draft it for our next meeting. We'll
Okay.
take a look at it. We'll figure out how many trees we want back. I'm thinking a minimum of 6. If I'm letting them walk away, doing what we did, it's gotta be 3 to 1. He gets to they get to pick what they want anyway. It's probably not gonna be, a conifer or anything like that.
Okay, so Matt will draft the enforcement order and,
And that can help them with the trees too.
And
And we
then-
can kind of figure out, we know where some are gonna go. Maybe we group them, maybe we put them in a few other places,
yeah,
Okay.
okay, yeah, because they're not gonna be planted next week anyway.
Yeah, so we have time.
Okay.
And this is being done in a friendly way.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So,
Continue this?
do we want to continue or should we close out the RDA?
I think you have to do a motion for the enforcement order, though.
Well,
Don't we have to go into that?
To
First
draft the
request.
if,
Okay.
it's.
You can draft it, and then we can just do it
We'll issue it
at the
next
next
week.
meeting.
Yes.
Next
Draft
meeting.
it. Okay.
So we continue this?
Well, do we want to?
I think we can close the
Yeah, I think
public
if you-
hearing for the RDA. It doesn't,
And issue the conditional negative?
yes.
But then we're gonna
will
issue
that
an
too-
enforcement order on top
Issue-
of that? I'm not sure if
There
that's the
must be
process.
some way to reject this or something, because it's no longer an RDA. There is the.
Yeah,
the
well,
items-
okay, so that's
items in our
a fair
jurisdiction
point.
are
So,
gone.
so deny the RDA because
Item-
we're now not permitting an action. An action has occurred.
Right.
We'll draft an enforcement order for the commission's consideration, so.
Okay.
So it's a positive determination on the RDA?
Well, positive would say,
Well, usually we do a negative or a conditional negative, so a
Positive
positive would-
determination states, says that the
That there
next
would be
step
impact.
has to be a notice of intent.
Well, in this case, the next step is an enforcement order.
Why don't we call the traveler person, or whatever they call it?
Circuit rider.
Circuit rider.
That's right.
Whatever, the DEP representative that is supposed to be able to handle these kind of questions. I've never seen anything like this before, since I've been on the commission. We've had people,
Well, you're right.
do
A
things by
positive
mistake.
determination would take you to a notice of intent, but it may also be able to just lead us into an enforcement order.
Right, if that's the case, then we can do that.
Right.
I don't, right now, I don't know what
Yeah,
the
I'll.
right step. It's
if
not
we
an
conti-
RDA, though.
If we continue it, I
Yeah,
can
we
follow
can
up with the
research
circuit
that.
rider,
Yeah.
because that's a,
Let's stop it
Okay.
here.
this is a new one.
So,
Continue it.
can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to February 22nd?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
We'll make
the
it work.
letters come to me.
Yes.
Marquis doesn't,
Right, we'll, it'll be, we're drafting the enforcement order for discussion at the next meeting.
Okay.
so.
Yeah,
and should I be here on the 22nd of
Yes.
February?
yes.
February.
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Apologies, nobody to blame but myself.
Okay. Lesson learned.
Madam Chairman.
Yeah, no,
Chris Franklin's here now.
Yeah.
I know. We have to finish.
Well,
this, yeah.
let's, okay, so yeah, your
done.
public hearing is continued.
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, and we should tell Chris his public hearing is,
We,
That's what I understood.
yes, no, the
we
other.
took you up, Chris, already, so you're done.
There's two Chris's.
I thought it was 7:30. So.
We had you down at 7:10. That's okay.
7:10?
Yep.
Yeah.
But The
I will
commission
talk-
was pleased with the progress of the plan, so
All right.
I'll be in touch and,
Okay, I will talk to you
This
tomorrow or
week.
the day after.
yep.
And we continued it to the 22nd for after Matt does a site visit to look at the flagging.
Okay, cool.
So we just didn't want you to sit for the rest of the meeting.
Oh, no, I thank you. And again, I'm sorry I'm late. I thought it was 7:30.
Okay.
Sorry.
Have a good night. Sitting here waiting for something that already took place.
Good news,
Have a good night.
Okay, moving on to our 7:20 PM agenda item. This is a continued public hearing and issue order of conditions for 5 Island Path Road.
Hi, good evening. Maureen Harold from Norse Environmental Services. I was here last month in front of the commission, filed a notice of intent to install a seasonal dock. At the last hearing, the commission requested to locate an area to stockpile the docks during the wintertime, and that is shown on the plan.
Members of the commission have any comments or questions?
It's good. It's out of the floodplain up by the house.
Matt, did you have anything?
No, not regarding the plan. The plan looks good.
Okay. Any comments or questions from members of the audience? So, people have had a chance to review the order of conditions? Okay. Can I have a motion to issue the order of conditions as written?
So moved?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to close the public hearing?
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. See?
That's fine. So we in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Sign.
It looks a little bit different than they usually do.
Yeah, this is the EDP signature page as
Okay.
opposed to the other RDAs.
Sign.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to our other 7:20 PM agenda item, which is continued public hearing and issue order of conditions for Shaw, 7 Applewood Drive.
Good evening, Maureen Harold from Norse Environmental, and the Shaws are also here with me this evening as well. I have just large plans colored up. They're the same plans that were submitted to the town, but just a little bit easier to read. Those that are visually challenged like myself. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we were in front of the commission last month, and the commission asked for some additional revisions and incorporate a natural buffer. So we're proposing a 10-foot wide natural buffer along the wetland line. The natural buffer shall be planted with a mix of plants that are shown at the bottom of the plan as Table A. Just wildlife habitat friendly type plants, high bush blueberry, winterberry, red osier dogwood, and some spice bush. We're proposing them 20 feet on center. We're also incorporating conservation posts and signage that the commission likes to see. And in addition to that, we're proposing to plant 2 red maple trees, 5 to 6 feet in height. That's for the 2 oak trees that are next to the addition. It was discussed whether or not we were gonna take them down, and my client would like to take them down. And that is it. I believe that addressed the commission's concerns, and I can open it up with any questions.
Matt, Jim?
My understanding from the plans, you're adding 11 trees, or trees, bushes, shrubs, and taking down the 2, is that it?
That's correct.
Great,
yes.
thank you.
And also putting in the conservation markers.
Yeah, and the markers, that's good. That's good.
Any other questions? Matt, you got anything?
I don't have any.
Comments or questions from members of the audience? And everybody's had a chance to review the order of conditions? Can I have a motion to issue the order of conditions as written?
So moved.
Did they have any questions in regards to the order of conditions?
Yep.
You good with it? Okay.
No, I reviewed it. Oh.
No. Never been part of this commission ever, but, so if someone wants to plant more trees in the wetland, is that allowed?
Yes.
Well, you can plant in the buffer, not in the wetland.
This is sort of a, in
There are
compensation.
trees fallen down in the wetland.
Right, that
Can I
happens
go down
naturally.
and put few more trees down there?
What we're addressing,
You can plant, yes. Just send me an email, I'll be in touch, we can discuss.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, no,
I'm
typically-
trying to
typi-
help if there is a need
Typically
for
not
more
without a
trees.
permission.
And if
No,
it's,
planting, I think planting is, because you're improving,
I'd want him to be checking in, you know, because then some people will say, well, you know, I thought it was okay to plant, but then you found out that, you know, they're the type of plantings that you wouldn't want to see, they're not indigenous.
these plantings are compensation for a couple of trees that are being taken down in the
that's,
vicinity.
that will be done, but I'm just curiosity that
Oh,
some trees are fallen, are we allowed to put more trees
Yeah,
there?
meet
That's
with
all.
Matt and decide what's allowed.
And I won't do it if there is a, but I was just interested in putting more trees
look at the
somewhere.
regulations and see what it says, and, include something
Get
in the
back to him.
commission's packet for, as miscellaneous, just as a.
And you'll get back to him.
Yeah, and certainly be in
It
touch
has nothing to
after.
do with this project, it's just in
Yeah,
my,
it's just
Okay.
you had a question,
It's a
and
good
then
question.
we're gonna get you an answer and we'll address it.
Anytime you have questions, you can call Matt.
yeah, I just don't want to bother you guys too much, but.
It's not a bother, that's his job.
That's what I do.
Thank you.
Okay. So back to where we were. Can I have a motion to issue the order of conditions as written?
Gave you that motion.
Second.
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yep.
Where would you,
I can take a mug.
I think
Okay, I'll keep it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Where would you like these sent? To you or to the owners themselves? Think about it, let me know.
Send that doc to us.
Okay. Moving on to our 7:25 PM agenda item. It's a public hearing.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 25th, 2023, at 7:15 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of Derek Samia for the raising of an existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling, septic system, driveway reconfiguration, and associated grading within 100 feet of bordering vegetative wetlands at 12 Castle Road.
And just for a point of order, this was continued from, on the last meeting agenda to tonight.
You've gotten the cards? the Jim
Yes,
cards?
they email them.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Nick Pauling. I'm an engineer with Goldsmith Preston Ringwall. We're representing the applicant tonight. Do you have the highlighted?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So as the legal notice stated, we filed a notice of intent for the reconstruction or the redevelopment of an existing single-family house in town. That's going to involve knocking down the existing house, proposed construction of a new house that has more room, so it needed a new septic system associated with it. So haven't used this before.
Orange in the middle.
Orange in the middle. Do I point at the big one? Is that all right?
Yep.
Oh, this is great. So unfortunately, the screen's a little whitewashed. But Matt, can you scroll down into this area here? A little bit more, a little bit more. So this is located at the end of the extension of Castle Road. Castle Road's cul-de-sac is actually about here, and then there's about 300 feet of an extension. In that extension, this is the asphalt, and then a common drive comes up. One branches off to a house here, and then the drive continues further up to the existing house, which is located in the middle of the property. As you can see on this plot plan, there's a number of lines, but essentially there's 3 wetlands associated with the property. The one to the north actually has a brook flowing through it. It's a drainage brook, kind of taking the drainage from this general area flowing down. And then also there's drainage here that comes down into a drainage easement. So those are actually in drainage easements that were established during the construction of the development right around the mid-'80s, 84 to 86, I believe. There's a third wetland that's actually located along an existing wall, as Matt can attest if he would like to. This wetland seems to have kind of appeared due to just some poor grading at an original development, and just over the years it's held water, wetland vegetation is uptaken. If it's 20 feet wide, 15 of it is actively mowed as part of the neighbor's lawn. So it's a 5-foot strip of vegetation along a fieldstone wall that's used as a retaining wall to hold up the majority of the driveway. Can you scroll back up to the top, Matt, please? So what we're doing is the existing driveway, as I mentioned, comes up. As you're looking at this plan, the wetlands are green, so this is the first wetland series that I mentioned, with the brook coming down. The second wetland series comes down. This actually has 2 culverts, one coming in. There's a culvert going underneath the drive as it continues and discharges in the northeast region. And then you can see this green line here. This dash line, this probably somehow overflows and connects to this wetland. We didn't really identify it in the flagging, but it doesn't affect the buffer itself. So the red line here that follows around, that's your 30-foot buffer zone. You can notice the good chunk of the existing drive is within it. Wetland falls away, driveway comes out of it, and then the 30-foot continues to come along. This is the 55-foot for a previously disturbed buffer, and then the 100-foot actually leaves this little sliver here of upland on the lot. The existing tree line is actually this yellow line here. I swear it was green when we sent it over. I don't know what Mads did. But this is the existing tree line here, as well as over this general area here, coming down and following around. Everything between these yellow is, I'd characterize as a very well-maintained landscape feature. Small landscape beds around the existing trees that are all looked after. A number of them are looked after. So there's a number of paths, brick paths here, as you can see. And then there's the existing house in this area, as well as an existing large outdoor deck here. So what we're proposing is to raise the existing house and replace it with this house here, which is a dark blue line. That is an increase in impervious surface of about 1,500 square feet from building to building, differentials. What we're also doing is we're shifting that forward to allow for the removal of, excuse me as I look at my notes, 2,100 square feet of impervious of driveway here. And that's because this driveway we're going to keep and basically make the turnaround here into the end-loaded garage. Associated with the new construction, we have, this is the existing septic system. That is an existing septic system, the original, from 1986, I believe. It's for a 4-bedroom dwelling. The proposed dwelling is a proposed 5-bedroom. Unfortunately, due to the regulations, due to the number of the rooms, we actually had to design the new system on a 7-bedroom design. So this is the new proposed septic system versus the old one. Excuse me. Let me touch upon some other things. So associated with the new development, we also accounted for stormwater management. There's 4 different areas of recharge. One's located here, one's located here, and the last one located here. We sized those for a 1/2 inch for all impervious surfaces of the developed condition. So those will hold the good majority of storms present or kind of happening. Lastly, to point out, you'll notice this area up here. That area up here is lawn area that's crept into the 30-foot buffer zone. And what we're proposing is to actually restore that. So that actually represents the recapturing of 2,700 plus square feet of the 30-foot buffer. So lastly, touching upon the septic system. The septic system here or here is going to be located in the 100-foot buffer. The thing that really drives that is there are 2 wells on the property. The first is located approximately in this area. I should look at my plan.
It's a little south, I think.
It's actually a little south. Thank you. So this is an irrigation well, and then actually the water supply well is actually located here. So those 100-foot radiuses actually push any system, repair, new construction on this property into the buffer zone. Because we were putting in the buffer zone, you'll notice that I told you that this was actually sized for 3 additional bedrooms over this. So the system that you're looking at there, speed me up or slow me down, is actually called a enviroseptic Presby leaching area. It's on the Massachusetts Department list as an approved innovative alternative system. The state says that this is an advanced treatment leaching area. And so much so that they say that you can reduce the size of the leaching area 40% without doing anything. In upgrade conditions, they also say that the treatment in there is actually good enough that you can actually reduce the groundwater offset by half of what it's typically required, from 4 feet down to 2. We're not doing that in any of this case because this is deemed new construction. We're not allowed to ask for it. We fit it into the landscape. There's no need to. So while I'm saying all this, I think that the proposed innovative alternative treatment provides a significant improvement to the current leaching area of 1986 standards, in that it's based off of a real offset off historical groundwater or redox metamorphic features, rather than just digging a hole and saying, I don't see any water. Unfortunately, that was just how they designed them back in the mid-'80s. It also represents an oversized system for the practical use of the dwelling. 5 bedrooms had to be designed for 7. So I can certainly wrap it up by saying that we feel that, unfortunately it's the reconstruction or the redevelopment of a property, but we feel that we're decreasing stormwater runoff from the proposed development while providing advanced, better treatment to the septic system while restoring a continuous 30-foot untouched buffer. And I can certainly focus on or answer any questions that the commission has.
Eric?
So we've seen Presby systems before, so that's nothing new to us. The old home that's being raised was on the books for a 4-bedroom. Now we're moving it up a bedroom, but then we have it to size the septic for 2 more bedrooms beyond that. So we went from a 4-bedroom septic to like a 7-bedroom septic, and the septic is closer to the resource area. That's concerning to me. That's like we're increasing the number of bedrooms, and I'm not quite sure why we, I always thought if you had a house and, this is over an acre though, right?
Yes, so it complies with all of the nitrogen loading requirements, yes.
Typically I always thought if you had a 4 or 3, that's what was on the books you had to have. I guess if you have an acre or more, then maybe you can have more bedrooms, but, not with the septic being in the resource area. I mean, typically or in the buffer. I guess that's
So I
the
guess
thing that
what
I'm
is-
wrestling with.
What is driving having to create a septic as if it was a 7-bedroom house?
The number of rooms in the dwelling. So when you get to 8 rooms or more in a dwelling, the code actually requires, and actually the local Board of Health has a regulation that strengthens this argument or requirement. Once you get over 8 rooms, you actually have to count the total number of rooms and divide by 2. So a 7 or a 14-room house, be it a movie theater, an office, a library, that combination has to be accounted in the total number of rooms divided by 2. So this system would account up to 14 rooms in the dwelling.
And I mean, I get what we're trying to do here, but, you know, he's got a couple of wells. It's a tight, what we'd call a tight site. He has more than an acre, but he's limited in what he can do because he has his wells where he has them. Nothing says that he couldn't maybe put his wells somewhere else and move that septic further out. I mean, he's raising everything. I mean, that we're starting fresh here. So, you know, while I hear that, you know, from their perspective, you know, we need to move the septic and everything closer to the resource area because we're building a larger house. Nothing says that those wells can't be abandoned. You know, one's only one for agriculture and one's potable. I haven't heard the argument that he can't move those existing wells to get the septic outside of the 100,
Right.
other than they currently exist where they are, and because of, you know, drawing the 100-foot radius around them, that precludes it. But people abandon and put in new wells all the time.
Well, and does a septic have to be more than 100 feet from an irrigation well?
Only 50 feet.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just saying, you know, somebody's got to show me that, you know, there's no other way to do this, because right now, you know, I'm having a tough time buying the fact that I got to put in a 7-bedroom septic system closer to the resource area for a building that's currently there that they're deciding to raise because they want something more grand.
I agree. Here you have an opportunity to improve this distance from the resource area as opposed to pushing it closer in. And it seems like there's more space where the old house was located, and if you move things further to the west, and if you use a 50-foot radius for the irrigation well, it just seems like there is more opportunity
Yeah,
to
I'm not
get things
convinced that the
further
well should
away.
be forcing us to do this the way we do. And while
Yeah.
I like some of the improvements about removing some of the impervious surface and, you know, getting back some additional buffer to the wetland in certain areas, I just think there's more that we can do here, given that we're starting with a blank slate, basically.
Right. I think there are you said there weren't any other alternatives, but it seems like there probably are some alternatives that can be looked at here too.
So, coupled with the existing wells providing a viable source regardless of the number of bedrooms, this rear property, as it was developed, again, this driveway was actually filled and then caught up to existing grade, and then this area was actually excavated. So from this area here up to the tree line is actually a slope that slopes upwards of 12 to 15 feet from the flat portion behind the existing dwelling up to the property line. So what will happen if we put a septic system in this general area, even with the innovative alternative systems that are smaller, we still have to account for a breakout grading. So when you have an existing slope like this, there's only so much limits that you can put your leaching area in, and then you still have to account for your breakout. So while it's on paper, take this box, move it to the left, take the house, potentially move it to the right, the amount of grading, I hit the wrong button, sorry about that. That may actually, to allow for drainage, the breakout to catch up with existing grade, and for that grade to actually be able to swale so we're not sending water towards the back of the house, you may actually end up now, rather than having something that's treating effluent in the buffer zone, you actually have a house that's closer to the resource area.
I mean,
Well, that may not be, that may, you know, that might not be the worst thing. I mean,
my thought is, can the proposed house go in the location of, because there's nothing precluding the house from being in the well buffer, correct?
The house is in the well buffer right now.
Right, so it
Yeah.
can, so the proposed structure can end up, could be in that location. You know, and whereas the existing septic system is outside of it, you know, is there a mechanism to relocate the proposed septic system in a similar spot to the existing? I mean, because there's also a lot of.
Well, if you're telling me right now that the existing septic is outside the 100 and they want it.
No, not outside the 100. You know,
But further away, it clearly is
Right.
further away than it is now.
It's about 90, 95 or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's, that's not, this is
It's
going in the
currently
wrong
70
direction
feet.
for us.
70?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
70 from here to this wetland. So again, this is kind of a balance, hard to do in 2D, but it's a 3D game. This area is relatively flat, and then it slopes up as you come up here, and then comes to the back. So as this house moves back this way, not only do we need room elevation-wise, but we need to honor the grades, be able to drive up into the driveway. Is that?
I get what you're saying, but
Okay.
I'm not saying where the constraint is.
And I think, me speaking personally, I have a very hard time looking at a proposed development that's shown on top of the existing. It is, you know, there are no lines showing the, the distance around the wells.
Well, there are,
It's-
but
yeah, it's in the
well,
hard
okay.
yeah.
But it's, it's very confusing looking at a plan that's both.
Yeah.
What we generally want to see is a very clear plan of this is what the proposed is, so that when we get an as-built plan, it's very clear, there's no ambiguity about, is the shed gonna be removed, is it gonna be relocated? It's really nice to see, this is what you're gonna get.
It is going to be relocated. There is a shed actually in the 30-foot to be called to be removed or relocated. Right
And-
now,
and
it
which
should be
is it?
removed. Right?
Yeah, and for me, looking at a plan like this, it becomes very hard to think clearly about what are we getting. And that's just my 2 cents. But it just is looking at this plan and trying to assess it. It's very hard when you're kind of, you have to keep seeing stuff that's the existing site and you have to ignore it. And it just, it's me.
Well, see, I look at this and I'm saying,
the
you know,
existing-
if he's raising the house and everything, you know, basically it is a blank slate, so, you know, I don't see a lot of, you know, while I have constraints based on the wells and it seems to be forced and everything, and I understand the grades and the topography and why that might be driving it, you know, I'm just having a hard time seeing the future home having a much larger septic, closer to the resource area, regardless of whether it's an upgrade from the existing system or general Title V requirements, because we see that. So, you know, I'm not thinking that's anything like too special. And it wouldn't be a reason for us allowing it to be built closer to the resource area. So I'm just thinking, you know, there's could be other layouts or other things that we can do that, you know, is going to move that septic away. I mean, typically we only require a corner of the house to be outside of the 100. You know, typically we would like to see the house outside of the 50, or, you know, or even outside of the 75. But if I had to, I'd rather see the house closer to the resource area than the septic. And right now I don't have that.
How much fill is being, have you calculated how much fill is being brought in? Okay.
I guess I would just want to see, maybe to have having this discussion taken into account, have them revisit the plan,
So,
revise it, and then come back and say, hey, you know, we listened to your comments, you know, we try to be accommodative and we tried to move things or, you know, adjusted the plan. Because it's not like there's an existing house there that they're adding something to. And it's not like it's a septic to an existing house that they're trying to improve because they had one fail. I mean, this is basically a plot of land that we're doing something with now.
so I may. So again, revisiting to move the septic to this area, I touched upon how this area was mined out.
Yep.
So what happens is we would have to look at 12 feet of material removed and where the groundwater is. Now, I didn't dig a hole back there, hand up, I didn't do it. But being a licensed soil evaluator, I see an excavation of 12 feet, and that's not the first place that I'm gonna go and look, because theoretically, that groundwater is closer to the surface.
True, but I have seen places where, you know, the condition is as you describe, they perk it, they're adding a whole lot of fill, and then they're building the septic. I've seen that in town before, so I'm thinking that's a potential at least.
So potentially, yes, but I guess I have to ask the question on whether or not you would think it's financially feasible. More testing back here is.
I mean, for you to say it's
if I
gonna be
can-
more
if I can-
expensive to build that there than over there, that's not a concern of mine.
So if I could finish, if you don't mind, sir. To do this testing here would be a second application of official testing with the Board of Health. It would also mean the decommissioning of 2 wells that are currently serving the property. So while we're reconstructing, we're not starting from scratch. The wells, the electric service, they're all in place. We're also not clear cutting any forests, anything like
Build a
that.
smaller house then. You know, you don't need to have.
Do you have limitations on the square footage in your regulations, sir?
7-bath, you know, 7, you know, or in a septic that accommodates a 7-bedroom. You had a 4-bedroom to begin with. Nothing says you can't build a 3-bedroom. I mean, I'm just saying.
So
you
again,
know,
the 3-bedroom would
I'm not
be
taking away
within
your
the 100-foot
financial
buffer.
viability to build a new home. I'm simply saying, you know, maybe you need to take another look at this if you want to build the type of home that you want to build here.
So Eric, you still think that there are there's a practical alternative to this site?
I do.
Just to kind of move things.
I mean, all the time, we hear about
my-
people abandoning wells so they can accommodate new structures and what have you.
Right.
So I don't look at these 2 wells as being restrictive to the extent that we can't reconfigure or conform. And so, you know, to me, it's, okay, if you want what you want, maybe there's a way to get it, but, you know, some things might have to change.
Well, were you also, and I forget whether it was you or I thought somebody had mentioned having the house more in the existing location so the new septic could go where the old septic was.
Well, a reconfiguration of the home, and what I think I was just saying, I'd rather, if I had to, I'd rather have the home closer to the resource than
Okay.
have the septic.
So that's what would drive the swap. Because this plan shows 100-foot well
Radii.
A
radius
yeah.
on the agricultural well.
Right.
Correct.
If that's only got a 50-foot radius limit, can we get the plan?
Yes. So your agent did a very thorough review. He caught a couple of typos. That was one of the things that he pointed out. And yes, there is a couple of revisions to this plan that Matt suggested. We wanted to certainly have this conversation before we started revising plans. And so a couple of them were the 50-foot of the radius. He mentioned a couple of the plants that we proposed in the restoration are now considered non-native, even, you know, just as the new iterations in the plant. Mentioned a typo or 2, you know, a misspelling of an abutter's name. And actually, one thing that he didn't mention in his review, but he did mention in the site walk, if you could go back to the plan, thank you, Matt, is right now we currently have the erosion control here, staying outside the 30-foot buffer, and then being down gradient of the proposed leaching area, staying on the uphill side of the driveway, and then shooting across the driveway for the limited asphalt work as it ties into the garage. And Matt pointed out that, you know, the removal of this section of the erosion control, based on the benefits of having it closer, aren't as good as providing it on the down gradient side of the driveway. Also, that would allow the potential of, while we're not proposing to repave the existing driveway, it certainly puts it within the existing potential approved limits of work so that we could come back as a minor modification of, we'd like to repave the driveway.
Makes sense.
So I thought that was a great idea. So we wanted to mention that to the commission as well. We also did receive review from the Board of Health. Again, nothing design-wise, location-wise, anything that they have any issues with. Just, you know, they want something clarified in the calculations. So for example, a leaching trench is calculated by 2 sidewalls in a bottom area. So everyone says it's a 2x2 trench. We know how many linear feet or square feet per linear foot. He would just like it presented on the plan in a fashion where he could put it in his calculator and get the number. So we have relatively minor comments, but as Eric and I you've witnessed going back and forth, I think the big crux of it really is the location of the leaching area, especially with your local bylaws. I just want to reiterate again, here's the 100-foot buffer. This is the existing leaching area. So the existing leaching area, the existing septic tank is within the area with the existing house here. So we are pulling the house further away from the resource area, from here to here. Again, this side goes forward, but we're actually still farther away from the 55. So I have to ask the question, I can understand that you don't do designs, you don't provide, but I'd have to ask for some direction from the commission of, if this plan is unacceptable due to the location of the existing area and you feel there may be a reworking available, where are we at? If the existing septic tank is 60 feet or it's, 70 feet from the wetland, here to here, from this area to this area, is that generally the quote-unquote line in the sand the commission would be looking to have the new leaching area?
Yeah, typically we would not want to have it any closer.
It'd be better if it were.
It
further.
completely, I mean, the
Yeah.
goal is to have it completely
Out.
out. I mean, but in this particular, and you know, since we are raising the home, it begs the question, you know, show me that you can't put it somewhere else, because, you know, I'm not working with a home that I'm constrained by. So it's not like typically when a septic fails, you know, it's maximum feasible compliance. This is not maximum feasible compliance.
Right.
So again, you know, I would want the septic as far out and out of the buffer as possible, preferably, since I'm looking at this as a fresh site, 100 feet. We may be, you know, again, the house being closer to the resource area would not concern me as much, but having the septic closer does. And I only say that because I know when folks want to come in and they have a pre-existing home, I mean, if somebody wants to build a deck or put, you know, we say, okay, you know, basically your sonotube can't get any closer than 30 feet. But typically we would allow some portions of a structure closer to the resource area, but clearly, you know, we wouldn't want to have that septic system as close to the resource area as currently proposed. So, you know, in my mind, what's the lesser of two evils? And it's having, you know, the home closer to the resource area, not the septic.
Mm-hmm. Jim, you look like
Same
it.
thoughts, just that
Yeah.
it's better to have the house closer to the wetlands than the septic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marilyn or Noel?
I'm in agreement.
No, I'm agreeing.
I'd like to see him take a second stab at it, even though he's put in a lot of work.
How is that? Is that the kind of?
That's
what you're
great. No, I,
looking for, you know?
I
mean,
appreciate it.
we're
That's
trying to
better
give you
than a straw
direction.
vote. Yeah. I ask the question, you provide the answers, and then I figure it out.
No,
So-
we want to get you to the point where we can give you, you know, an order of conditions and have you be on your way.
I want to get there as well. Okay.
Okay,
Public comment?
yeah. Okay, comments or questions from the audience? If you just come to the microphone and let us know who you are.
My name is Bernard Peliquin. I live just north of the property on the old farm that I just recently put in conservation with the help of Matt and the Westford Conservation Trust. I'm intimately familiar with this whole area. I lived across from the brook from 63 till 88. And then again, 10 years ago, I bought the property when my mother passed away. Intimately familiar. The property with the house is a beautiful location, by the way, beautiful spot. There's an apple orchard when I was a kid. The slope is essentially what the slope is today, by the way. They didn't carve it out. Same slope, beautiful apple orchard there, which was eliminated after Ben Drew died. But in any event, I'm intimately familiar with the property. I think these brooks, at least the North Brook, which abuts my property, is being downplayed a little bit. If you take a look at it, this brook runs for most of the year, and it leads to a pool. And on this pool, it supports all kind of habitat, bobcats, deer, coyotes, and so forth. So that North Brook, those wetlands are vital. Furthermore, that brook is part of the headwater for Tadmuck Brook. That leads all the way down between Leland, cuts across Tadmuck, and into Tadmuck Swamp, which feeds Stony Brook, which feeds the Merrimack. So those wetlands that you're concerned about cannot be downplayed. Okay, I'm not so sure about the other side.
You and I are in agreement there, so.
Yeah, but so that north side needs to be taken into consideration. You know, and I wish you success in the project. You know, it's not about that. It's about preserving the property. I put a significant sacrifice into saving all of my property for the town, because I don't know how long I'll be there. But I want to make sure that everything around it is saved as well. But what I'd like to see down the road after the property gets built, we see these conservation markers all over the place near wetlands. That whole area that he's going to restore, which is a great thing, that has really been disturbed. I mean, they got the shed in there and so forth. I think something should be put there, markers or those stakes that you see, so that down the road,
So you
that
would
won't
want
be
to see those
intruded upon.
conservation posts?
Yeah, sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
so, that's something,
Well, and that's something that we normally do, because that's a way of educating the homeowner that says, you're close to a wetland, if you want to do something here, you need to speak with the Conservation Commission, so that's it.
so we typically would
It's us
require
ahead.
those posts anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that gets the homeowner ahead of,
And where would you require those? Just in restoration areas? Or around the limit of work?
They probably go along roughly the 30-foot line, and then the opposite, then the far side of the driveway probably is the most
It's-
reasonable.
it's-
But it would all depend on where the house and
So
septic go.
the 30-foot and then
Yeah.
the pre-existing disturbed.
Driveway, right, the
yeah.
driveway then.
To just identify the area that's not to be disturbed.
But I think those can't be finalized until
No,
we
but
know
it
where
just-
Yeah,
where the house.
but at least he's asking for, kind of like, how would we do it, what
Sure
would we
that something
propose, so,
What does it look like?
yeah.
Spacing, are they on 4x4 cedar posts? Do you provide the signs themselves? Is it something we have to do and then get approved?
We'll
We
tell
do
you
a
the
little plaque,
language,
yeah.
and it's a 4x4, not cedar,
Just,
although
yeah,
that's a great
pressure
idea.
treated 4x4.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Tell you, look up pheno bounds. You can engrave them anyways.
Yeah, that's.
And then spacing, 25 feet, 50 feet.
25, 50, I think it, you know, I think however it makes the most
Yeah, I mean,
sense.
you know,
I
once
think
you
there
do
are
your
some-
plan and we see it, you know, sometimes it's easier to say, okay, we want it here, 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 you know, as part of that final
Well,
plan.
and
you
a
know.
lot of it is so that when you're standing at one, you can easily see the next, so that it becomes very easy for somebody to just kind of from post to post connect the dots and understand where
This is
that
where I
limit-
am, I can
This is
do
the limit of
stuff and
demarcation.
where I should be, and this is what I should, you know, not be, you know.
If I want to
for-
do something here, I need to call town
But
hall.
yeah, exactly, I need to leave this alone.
We could pause
That's a good suggestion.
alternative,
Okay.
post and rail along the,
No, we want,
I mean,
we want something
if it had
that's permanent.
if it had a sign on, if, you
On
know,
the
if it had-
post and rail, but sometimes people, you know, a fence doesn't necessarily demarcate an area where I should be doing work, you know, somebody can work on both sides of a fence.
I mean, we've also had people remove the posts, so I understand the, you know, so it's.
Boulders
Have it in
or
the
whatever,
final-
but, you know.
We'll have it in the final packet, so
Yeah.
it'll be on
I
record.
understand the concern and the comment, and we'll find a way to memorialize the buffer.
And if you come across if you come across boulders, that's what we've had people do too, is just kind of periodically space them
Yep.
as a visual.
There actually are a couple very large boulders that the prior owner put there, but they kind of
Yeah.
went beyond and stuck the shed
But,
in and
yeah.
so forth. But,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want to take any more time, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of property. With the
Nope.
town forest behind it, with the trail going right next to it, we just have to be real careful, that's all I'm saying.
No, I appreciate the comment, so thank you for taking the time.
Matt's made a note of that.
Hello.
Angela Harkness. We're actually the misspelled abutters.
Spell check with your last name. It's not good.
So we live across the common driveway here, and I just want to agree, it's a beautiful piece of property, and congratulations to the Samias, and we look forward to welcoming them to the neighborhood. There are just a couple of things that we wanted to point out that we know from living there for the last 30 years. Obviously, it's wet. We're downhill from this, so everything that comes off that property goes down the hill, as was said, through the stream at the top and the stream that it meets next to our house, and down to the little pond, and then to the Tadmuck Swamp. That's all already been said. There's a little swale right at the top of the driveway where it splits, where it's sort of where the red line has a point. Yeah, right around there somewhere.
Well, so this green line is actually the wetlands on the other side. So this is the down gradient, your side of the driveway. This is as we come up the driveway. So this area here is actually the low area that has the culvert that goes over.
That's the swale. That's
Yep.
what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Is the swale. Yeah, right there, and that's got, and I think you mentioned this. That's got a pipe in it that comes down to the lower part of the stream where it meets the stream that comes from the top part of the property. They meet on our property.
So that's actually right here. So this is the existing drainage easement here. This is the area of the pipes. Your
Right, and
property
this-
is here in your driveway.
Yes,
And
and
there's actually a manhole, I believe, right
it's a dry
there.
well, really. And they meet at that stream, right, where you just about, where you have the pointer, and then that stream goes all the way down the side of our property to the pond. So the point I was really trying to make is that that swale has a tendency to get clogged up often because things are dumped there, yard clippings and stuff. Over the years, there have been a couple of owners of this house, and we've had to, say, don't drop the clippings here
It's
because
gotta go somewhere.
but it's clogging up the swale, and that keeps the drainage from coming down. So that's one thing, and I hope that whatever buffers and hay bales and stuff are put up would prevent anything like that from happening while the construction is going on. I'm sure it will, but just. And the second thing is, we hope that whatever is done is not going to make any more water come off the property than is already coming off the property now. We realize that's the regulations, but just so you're aware. And the third thing is that also down in that same corner, the utilities are underground, and there's an electrical box there, which has a terrible design. It fills up with water. It's presently we've had to have National Grid come out before, electricians come out before, because the structure is designed so poorly that often it gets, not often, but periodically it gets to a point where it fills with water, and the water just streams across the driveway. And that's what's happening now. It's happened again. And I think that's why you said there was a new little wetlands. I think that's what's.
Yeah, so the new wetland is actually along this property line here.
And the water from the electrical box streams across the driveway and in that direction. So I think that may be what happened there. And I'm just saying this because if National Grid's going to be out there, it's a great opportunity for them to fix that. That box also drains into the swale. And sometimes the side that it's draining from doesn't work either. So the box itself is kind of a mess. So those were just things we wanted to mention, right? And just be sure that you're aware of them, and you guys were aware of them too, because it's a good time to make sure that, fix that box, and also just, again, be careful of the wetlands and the stream and all of that stuff too. Well, there was one more thing in that the drive from the first cul-de-sac to the second cul-de-sac is private, that it's not an accepted town way, and we just paved it, just last year. So we hope, and I know this is probably not the jurisdiction of this board, but we hope that, there won't be any damage to it, or if there is, it'll be rectified, repaired, whatever. And I know I speak for the 5 houses that deal with that, so.
I can understand that, sure.
Okay, that was it.
Thank you, Angela.
One other question. Oh, hi.
Sorry, hopefully last one. Alyssa Broberg, we actually, I think, live across the street from you. So nice to meet you. We bought our house in 2021, and I think actually my last name is also spelled incorrectly. Broberg. And not to sound like a broken record, but I think just to reiterate everything that they said, that our only concern, my husband's and mine, would be obviously the wetlands to the north, and just that, obviously nothing becomes more wet than it already is, unless it's natural, of course. But I think that's all I really have to say. That's just our main concern. Would hate for our yard to become flooded or something. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have one more thing that I remembered, is thinking about the length of the driveway. What is the plan for snow storage? In the case of the driveways being plowed and we have a snowy winter, with how close the driveway is to the wetland, any thoughts about?
Where are you going to push the snow?
Yeah, I mean, presumably it goes down slope. But yeah, that's a question I always ask.
Yeah, it would have to be up at the end. Here, at the end of the driveway.
Okay.
This slopes up gradient, so they could certainly put a windrow on the left. On the right, it's pretty well vegetated here, so it's not
When you're saying vegetated, you mean shrubs or just grass?
scrub growth,
Okay.
wild growth, I guess I would say.
Okay, so naturalized?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this area
But it
here.
drops off pretty, there's a drop off.
Yeah, it just, I think about, people putting down sand, salt, icing chemicals, stuff like that. And just with the proximity to the wetlands, concern about that stuff, washing into the wetlands.
I did confirm the wetlands with Mr. Mora and Mr. Paul.
Okay.
With all that, when did you want to come back?
Tomorrow? You guys gonna be here?
Okay, 2 weeks.
If we could do 2 weeks, I have to have a conversation with obviously my client, but then the Board of Health. We found some soils that we were expecting, whether or not those exist kind of elsewhere in the property. I'm kind of at a chicken and an egg situation of potentially showing you something that is palatable to you and then making sure I can design it, or go through the whole process of designing it and then coming it back and saying, hey, look, and you guys saying no.
What's the scope of testing required for utilizing an existing, where the existing?
So the existing one, again, being an 80, essentially the hard line is 1995. That's when Title V first came into play. That's when we actually started using the science of modeling rather than just digging a hole and saying, it's not wet, let's put a system in. So it basically, we know what to expect when we dig the hole there, but it's useless.
Okay.
Our next two meetings are February 22nd, and then again on March 22nd. We're not meeting on March 8th, so,
Okay.
those are your two options for the next meeting.
So based on that, I'd ask if we could please do the 22nd, and I'll be in contact with Matt. If I don't have any good answers, I'll save you time, and I'll ask for a continuance.
So we can continue with our discussion if it turns out that we're not ready for the February 22nd. Okay. Motion to continue the public hearing to February 22nd.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so moving on to our 7:35 PM agenda item, we have a public hearing for Barrett, 15 Beaver Dam Drive.
That's me. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 25th, 2023 at 7:25 p.m. in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Eileen Barrett, trustee of Barrett Family 2021 Living Trust, for the construction of a 16 by 18 sunroom and a 16 by 16 deck on precast concrete footings within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands at 15 Beaver Dam Drive.
Good evening. My name is Eileen Barrett, and I live at 15 Beaver Dam Drive, as you stated. I'm here to discuss my plans to build a 16 by 18 sunroom and a 16 by 16 deck. That will be located at the back of my home, overlooking an in-ground pool and landscape backyard. My husband Jim and I were in the process, the early stages of planning this room in 2022 when my family was faced with an unforeseen event, putting the planning on hold. I'm here before you tonight to continue with the planning process in an effort to begin the project and develop the room. The proposed room and deck would be placed 86 feet from the wetlands. Both the room and the deck will be constructed on approximately 9 precast concrete footings and already disturbed land, which is, I think the pictures were part of the package.
Yes.
That shows that it's already landscaped. There's stone there, there's a pool there. I guess that's it.
I visited the site and determined the wetland is on the easterly side of the property beyond the pool. And I measured to the nearest point of the existing fence of the pool fence to be 86 feet, so.
Yeah, 86 feet past the pool?
No, 86, the edge of the pool fence is 86 feet, which is, I think, very close to where the addition is going to be going.
Yes, you're talking
So
from the
it's,
wetlands
between
to the-
86 and I think 80 west.
Any gutter work or a
101.
drip edge or a dry well or
Go to
anything like that?
the picture of the plan, the plot plan, and then just show me where the distances are. 'Cause
Yes,
that was
so
one
the
thing.
wetland
The plan didn't show any wetlands at all.
Right.
So the wetland is somewhere in this vicinity, to the east of the pool, east of the property. From the edge of the wetland to the edge of about the proposed sunroom is about 86 feet.
86 feet roughly from the wetland to the pool, to the deck.
Yeah, to where the proposed scope.
So where did the pool go in?
Sunroom deck.
1974.
Nice.
You're telling me. I'm the one who
We're
has to
talking
give
a
people the
historic
bad news that
pool.
they have to come here.
Yep.
All right.
From looking at the plans and stuff, it looks like you've been talking with contractors and stuff like that. Any idea whether they're gonna access the site from the left or the right side of your house?
So they can from either side. There's plenty of room if you're on the street looking at the house. The left side of the house kind of goes down a little bit. Easy access in that way. It's all flat. But I have an extended driveway up the side of the house from the driveway that's there all the way to the shed in the backyard that they can drive right up.
Yeah, because what I had done was I had looked at it in GIS, and so I'm seeing where the slopes are, and it was like,
There's a slope there on the
yeah, is it, so if
the left
you
side.
have construction equipment coming around the right side and you've got slopes, are we then, talking about erosion control, so that if you've got a very wet spring and you've got water or stuff traveling over ground, that we've got something that can intercept stuff before it gets to the pool, before it gets to the wetlands? And that was
I don't see how that's even anywhere near the wetlands. The wetlands are out back.
No.
Yeah, as a measure of best management practice to, enclose the project area.
Gotcha.
Install if, there is even small machinery, disturbing, and just as a.
soils, we get a very heavy spring rainstorm, and you've got, for example, if the equipment kind of tears up the grass or whatever, and you've got soil that's loose.
Sure.
It's easier to plan and not need it than.
I'm working with Paul Catalano. He's a
Okay.
builder here in Westford, and he is extremely agreeable and
Okay.
Easy enough to put up some erosion control.
Yep.
So, I mean, so I'm on footings. Are these, I'm assuming they're gonna need to pour some sort of, you know,
Precast.
or is it just gonna sit on, they're gonna put gravel down and sit the precast on the gravel, or?
I think the precast they excavate a hole, put in a suitable subgrade,
Subgrade and then
base,
sit the, okay.
and then backfill.
So, you know, we're not having a whole lot of material that's hanging out, so pretty minimal, and I'm assuming they're just gonna spread that around wherever to just grade out things in the backyard or close to where they're working.
That's my
That's
understanding.
That's the plan.
That's what he told me.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. I just wanted to.
He said it was the least invasive way to
Yeah.
do it, knowing that there was potentially wetlands over
I
there.
don't have any problems with this.
Any comments or questions from the audience? So, conditional, negative?
A conditional negative with a
Yeah, 'cause we're
condition
putting
for
in
the
erosion control measures
Okay.
and a couple of other things.
So, can I have a motion to issue a conditional negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, moving on to our
7:40.
7:40 PM agenda item, 2 Daniel Drive, a request for minor modification of an approved plan.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Just wondering why you were sitting there.
Yeah, right. Oh, I'm just a sadist.
Just thought you enjoyed it so much you'd stick around, you know?
So my name's Nick Pauling. I'm an engineer with Goldsmith, Preston Ringwall. As you stated, we're here before you asking for a minor modification to an order of conditions that the commission issued wasn't even last November, November 2021. So this is 2 Daniels Drive. This is zoomed in a little bit on the property. As Matt's cursor is showing, there's an existing drive off of Daniels Drive is down at the bottom of the page here. Driveway comes in, and the proposal originally was to put an addition, a rectangular addition here on the dwelling, and that included a expansion. There's an existing deck here, and it included this funky looking kind of an expansion of that width deck to a point, and then jogged in and then continued over the full width of the dwelling. Since that approval, the architects have been going wild. I don't mean to talk bad about them. I hope none are in the room. But basically, now that we've got an approval for them to build something, now they're actually getting the geometry of what they want to build, and that's slightly different. So on this plan, this one looks a little bit better than my last one. Who sent this one over?
Yeah, we can see this one.
Yeah, right?
Have him do more.
Yeah, well, yeah, he did the other one too. So the big difference on this is the deck is massively revised, where this edge is pulled back to this edge, so from here to here, and then this limit is actually pulled from here to here, so from here to here. So this is a smaller deck. These 3 dots actually represent the sonnet tubes still being outside the 30-foot buffer zone. The house is, it represents a net decrease in square footage of 64 square feet. I can break down how that comes down, but we tried to do that graphically. In anything that's green was deck or house that was approved, that's now gonna be grass. Anything that's red is grass that's now gonna be asphalt, or not asphalt, but shingled roof. So what you get is an increase in the closest encroachment of deck from 25 to 29, so you're gaining 4 feet further away. The house, again, you're only gaining a foot, from that corner to that corner, but it's about 3 feet wider. So there is more square footage between the 30 and the 55, but there's less out here in the front because of this jog here, so this is all now grass. So in the top right of the plan is actually a summary table. So again, what you're seeing in the first 4 is you're looking at the addition setback to the BVW. You approved it at the closest encroachment of 35. As revised, that increases to 36, so that's a net positive further away. Addition setback to the brook was 68, again, now that's gonna be 70, so that's another net positive of 2 feet. And then the deck to the BVW was at 25, we're going to 29 with that, so again, that's 4 feet further away, which also, the deck is 4 feet further away from the brook as well. The bottom, the negative numbers, except for this plus, this represents the numbers of the square footages. So again, from 0 to 30, or within the 30-foot buffer, it was 45 square feet. We're reducing that to 4, so minusing 41, or decreasing. Between the 30 and the 55, this is where we're increasing by 23 feet. This is primarily from taking this edge and moving it closer to the former pool, which represents 280 square feet. It was removed, so that's additional.
Is there another pool or anything else being proposed that needs to come before us while we're looking at this?
No.
Okay.
Well, that's an existing pool or an existing approved pool?
It was an above-ground pool that was on the original plan.
It was an existing predating regulations pool that was shown on the approved pool plan that has since been removed.
Okay.
Oh, that. Stephen kept that.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. But I'm thinking that ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm liking what I'm seeing,
Yeah.
so it's okay.
Yeah.
And then again, with the, between the 50 and the 100 foot, again, 127 feet going to 81, minus 46. So you add the minuses and the plus and you get the same as, it's a decrease in the total riverfront area of 64 square feet. So this is a previously approved, less square footage further away situation.
I'm good with this, Matt.
So am I.
Okay.
Motion to approve the minor change?
So, yeah, motion to approve the requested minor modification.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Matt, is there anything we need to sign? Nope.
No.
Okay.
Now we'll reference the meeting minutes and the.
I'll sign and
The
I'll
public
sign the
hearing
building
or-
permit.
Yeah,
Move things along.
well, there is no public hearing.
It's not a public hearing, it's just a.
Okay.
This is a determination on whether or not
Yeah.
we needed one.
We vote on that?
I'll leave you with all your friends. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
That one was easier.
A lot.
Now, moving on to our 7:45 PM.
This
agenda.
is getting tabled to the 22nd.
Okay, so the 7:45 agenda item is postponed, so we don't need to vote on it because it's not a public hearing. We don't need to vote for postponement.
Where are
Because
we?
7:45.
There was just a request to support.
Meadowbrook Farms is postponed.
Okay, okay, got it.
So we're moving on to our 750.
750, which is 15 Juniper Hill, request for removal of 3 pine trees in open space property under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can address this following up from the last meeting. I did meet out on site with the Assistant Director of Public Works to get his thoughts on the site conditions of the commission's parcel and the trees. I didn't see any signs of disease. It's a pine tree, so there certainly are dead branches. But in discussing with the chair, it may be worthwhile to hire a certified arborist to evaluate the entirety of the existing conditions along that 15-foot, that kind of southern portion of the parcel, so that, we can.
So you want us to hire somebody to take a look at it and evaluate it?
Evaluate all.
The whole thing.
Yeah, all behind,
So it
so that
doesn't
it's.
keep coming to us.
Exactly, so we can.
I think that's a very good idea.
And also thinking about not just the way things look now, but as the
Going forward.
progression,
Right,
what's it look
maintenance.
like 10, 15 years from now? Because looking at the pictures, there's one tree that's really close to the top of the slope, but it's like, what happens to that tree over time? So this is
I
where.
think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, okay.
I'm okay with that.
You need a motion?
I don't think so. I can move forward with this. It shouldn't
Okay,
need
great.
procurement anything.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. My
So-
photos.
So moving on to our 7:55 PM agenda item, a discussion of an alternate landscape plan for Kaylin, 39 Waterview Drive.
What's he doing?
He's playing music. Of course, dialing in the applicant.
He's dialing the applicant. They're not asleep already.
I just sent an email.
Hello, Ron Kalin here.
Hi, Ron. It's Matt with the Town of Westford Conservation Department. You're on speakerphone in the commission's meeting.
Very good. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Before we go any further, my wife and I would like to thank the commission for accommodating our transportation challenges by allowing us to participate in tonight's meeting via conference call. Thank you for your flexibility.
Glad we could accommodate you.
I think the materials we submitted to the commission are fairly self-explanatory, but I can give a quick 3-minute review of our submission if that's what you desire.
Go ahead.
Okay. Under the commission's order of conditions that were previously issued to Summer Village at the Pond in Westford, cottage owners are allowed to submit an alternative landscape plan for the portion of the 30-foot no-disturb zone adjacent to the pond in front of their waterfront cottage. And our ALP that we've submitted for review tonight consists of 3 parts. First, we are requesting permission to establish a natural path running through the no-disturb zone between our cottage and the pond so that the pond can be accessed for swimming or boating without having to walk through potentially tick-infested overgrowth, which could pose a health safety hazard. The proposed path would be curved to minimize runoff effects. We request to establish the path by periodically trimming vegetation within the path's boundaries to a low height using only manual tools, such as a grass whip or scythe, to help ensure that no vegetation trimming is accidentally performed outside the path. We propose to clearly demarcate the path's boundaries with edge plantings. We're requesting to make the path 5 feet wide so that we can transport a large rowboat along the path without damaging the edge plantings. The commission requires watercraft to be stored within 6 feet of the cottage. Our rowboat is heavy and must be wheeled between our cottage and the pond using a 5-foot wide dolly. If the proposed path were narrower than 5 feet, the wheels of the dolly will crush the edging plants at the path's boundaries, and we'd like to avoid such damage. The requested path would occupy approximately 200 square feet, or approximately 15% of the portion of the no-disturb zone in front of our cottage. To compensate for limiting the height of the vegetation inside the path's boundaries, we propose to accelerate renaturalization of the rest of the no-disturb zone in front of our cottage by deploying numerous native plants outside the path's boundaries. These new plants will help curtail soil erosion, provide a habitat for local wildlife, and attract pollinators such as birds, bees, and butterflies in a way that will be more effective and more aesthetic than just letting the existing vegetation, which is mostly grass, grow wild. Finally, we are requesting permission to remove some invasive purple loosestrife from along the shoreline and replace it with new native plants as shown in the submitted diagram. If the commission approves our ALP, we will have the plantings performed by a professional landscaper who has previously worked on projects within conservation zones and knows the special requirements for such work. In summary, we believe our proposal is consistent with the Commission's previous order of conditions and allows us to guarantee future safe, tick-free access to the pond when passing through the no-disturb zone, while also achieving better renaturalization of more than 85% of the no-disturb zone in front of our cottage compared with what would happen if we just let the existing grass grow wild. We respectfully seek the Commission's approval for our proposal and appreciate your consideration on this matter. That's our presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good to me.
And just for the record, this does, this is consistent with special condition number 26 of the order of conditions issued to, which required either the 30-foot no disturbance zone from the bank of Long Sought For Pond to the cottages, and specifies this shall be accomplished by not mowing or maintaining the 30-foot buffer. As an alternative, a landscape plan may be submitted to the Commission for review and approval. Any landscape plan shall consist of plants native to the Westford area that grow well in the type of soil found along the pond and will enhance the buffer functions. So I certainly think
Meets all the criteria.
But this isn't a landscape plan. You know, he's got some landscape in it, but he's creating a pathway, which isn't a landscape plan. It's creating a 5-foot crushed gravel or whatever S-shaped way to get from, you know, basically the patio area to Long Sought Fort Pond to get out his large rowboat. So that's different than an alternative landscaping plan. So, you know, at the very least, I see what he's trying to do, and I don't know if just saying that if I do this, you know, it's gonna relieve the situation where I might not, you know, put myself, you know, in harm's way of a tick or that. To me, I don't know if that's justification for putting in the gravel pathway. And if we do allow a gravel
If I may interrupt, it's not a gravel pathway. We're not proposing to add any materials to the path. We're simply proposing to limit the height of existing vegetation within the boundaries of the path, and the rest of the plan does describe a landscape plan with additional plantings to compensate for our limiting the growth of vegetation within the boundaries of the path.
Okay, point taken, but as you move your boat back and forth through that area, aren't you gonna be rutting it up and stuff with the wheels from your boat?
That is a possibility. The ground is quite hard in the area where the path exists right now, and I believe the rutting will be minimal. And in any case, that is the idea: is that the path would allow passage, and to compensate for any, how should we say, restriction on the growth of vegetation within the path, we are trying to compensate by supplementing the vegetation and improving the renaturalization in the rest of the no disturb zone. So your point is valid. I can't, you know, we can't predict exactly what the impact of the passage of the wheels will be over time, but if vegetation doesn't grow within the path boundaries due to the passage of the wheels, the hope is that the supplemental vegetation in the rest of the no disturb zone will provide compensation, pollination environment, wildlife, habitat for wildlife, and so forth, to make up for the loss of the square footage within the path boundaries. That's the logic that we're arguing.
No, and I get that, but you know, it's a no disturb zone for a reason, and I'm just saying, you know, this is more than an alternative landscape plan. You know, we're planning on using a portion of the area to go back and forth to get access to the pond with a boat.
Right. If I may just add one other point. When the order of conditions was being discussed with the Commission by Summer Village in previous years, there was discussion, and it's even on record in the public recordings of some of the meetings that took place then. The chair indicated at the time that it was their belief that a path from the cottage to the pond would be allowed and be appropriate under the auspices of the order of conditions. In other words, that was not out of line with the intentions or the objectives of the order of conditions. And I don't have the date and time of the meeting, but I know it is a matter of public record that this point was raised by others at Summer Village who asked specifically about this path, the concept of a path, and the impression given at the time was that it would be regarded as an acceptable element, provided that it was in the context of an overall alternative landscape plan as we've submitted. So I do believe this was discussed previously by the Commission with people from Summer Village. So this isn't the first time that this issue has been talked about. It doesn't change the force of your argument. I'm just saying it was discussed and did have a hearing on that point, and we were given the impression that a path would be allowed to provide exactly what we're asking for, which is safe access between the cottage and the pond.
Jim?
What if the item that's listed as the established 5-foot wide unpaved path, what if instead of it being called that, it was just called existing grass, parentheses, unmaintained?
We could call it that, but
I'm saying that for the purpose of the Commission,
right.
Because then you're not creating a path, you're just leaving it as unmaintained grass, which is a lot of what the no disturb area is being called.
So I guess that is where the path is being proposed. Is that the way that you get your boat into the water today?
Yes, it is, and we walk on that path today, and so far the grass has not grown particularly well in that area, but it might grow over time and thereby become more of a hazard for ticks in the future. So we are trying to preclude or plan ahead for the possibility that the grass in the pathway might become taller and more of an overgrowth. For now, it hasn't been an issue, and we could argue it won't become an issue, but we would prefer, since there's a limited window for us to apply for permission for approval for the ALP, we felt it was better course to come before you and make a concrete proposal that would establish the path in order to prevent overgrowth that could harbor ticks in the future.
Okay. Other members of the commission have comments or questions? The only concern that had come to my mind was that if every cottage that had an exclusive use area between it and the edge of the pond decided to do something similar, are we looking at half a dozen individual paths going through landscape area down to the pond? And it was not so much looking at this one in isolation, but that if this became the model that each cottage used to get their own access to the pond, are we looking at cumulative impacts?
Yeah,
it's interesting that very few owners at Summer Village have shown any interest in submitting an ALP whatsoever, despite they have the option to do so. We're one of the few who has shown any inclination to do so far, and there is a limited time window for submitting them. So you're right, it could conceivably, you may get others with similar requests, so I can't guarantee it would be 0 or 1 in our case, but it doesn't look like there's a preponderance of activity wanting to recreate what we're trying to do here.
Okay. Jim has another comment.
Isn't it okay for the property owner to walk across that 30-foot no disturb? They're not building anything, they're not constructing anything. If you own a property, can't you just walk down to the water?
Yes, you can.
But he's worried about ticks, so he wants to do
But I'm
this.
thinking if we have paths that are designed, the thought was that over time, the area renaturalizes, vegetation grows up. If we have a series of paths that are designed so that the vegetation does not grow up.
It kind of defeats the purpose of the 30-foot no disturb.
Right, and if there's any grade, then that becomes an issue with.
Well, except that, again, we're talking about less than 15% of the no disturb zone being within the path boundaries, and 85% of it is within the area that is allowed to
On your particular
regrow.
property, but others could propose to do the same.
And this is not necessarily, this is looking at what you're proposing, but then also thinking ahead that says, if this is approved, what are the implications if other people then look at it and say, oh, I think that was a great idea? So some of this is not just in the context of today, but in the context of where this can lead us. And
I understand.
That's
I
just where
understand.
the conversation is going in certain respects.
I hate to call it and establish a 5-foot wide unpaved path. I just, if it's gonna be like Jim said, maybe it's grassed right now and you simply don't call it anything. You simply let them traverse.
Maintained area.
An unmaintained area.
The more you go by it, I had, when I lived on the Cape, I had a little deer path and I went down there with the stroller like every day and it just naturally became a trail. So if they just kept doing that, it would just naturally happen and they wouldn't have to.
So if we're saying where in the location of the path, instead of planting vegetation that will be maintained, that will remain low, if the area is continuously traversed, that will in effect keep the grass from growing up tall.
It'll just take care of itself,
Yeah.
An S-shaped unmaintained area. It's not a path.
That would look more natural.
Okay, an unmaintained.
That would
yeah.
look more natural.
It would look more natural.
The whole picture.
The ongoing usage would prevent the vegetation from growing tall enough to.
I don't know if that'll happen or not. It might, and it would be, I prefer to start with that approach if that's the approach. Another thing is you have an S-shaped pathway, is that warranted? Do you need, I mean, why the S-shaped path versus more of a direct route? You know, it seems like here we're trying, you know, we have this S-shaped path, we're trying to move this heavy boat through this S-shaped path. You know, maybe it should be
Mr.
more of a
Kalin,
direct route.
He said it was just to try to reduce the amount of runoff water.
Right, but that's fairly flat right there. I don't think the topography is such that you get a lot of runoff.
Be okay with
Did you look
straight
at the pictures that came out? Because it also looks like the path is in some ways following where there are trees, the way that the what grade there is. It's kind of like the path, the location of the path is following
The topography.
the path of least resistance.
Okay, I see
Yes,
that.
that's right. That's right. We're navigating around the trees. And as it was stated a moment ago, we were advised by a landscape designer that it would be preferable to have the S-shaped path because of minimizing runoff effects. So that was the motivation as much as anything else.
Yep.
So if, just for the sake of argument, if we said that this this unmaintained area for traversing, if we call it an unmaintained area, and then it starts to go up, can they come back and come forward with a request to modify their ALP?
Well, maybe we just, if he's so worried about ticks at that particular point in time, we just let him mow it that once or whatever.
Yeah, so we look at all, if,
times a season.
Yeah, versus having, you know, to do something and, you know, here it's almost like if we keep it minimalistic and he gets to move his boat back and forth across this particular area, that's great. But, you know, keep it as minimalistic as possible. If the grass grows up to a point where it seems like, you know, the issue with ticks is going to become a real concern, then come back to us and say, well, maybe we'll let you take that, you know, unmaintained and
we look
let
at
you mow it or
alternatives.
something, like we would at,
Meadows or something.
yeah, the meadows or something, you know, where we allow them to mow it, you know, very minimally.
Okay, so we would look at alternatives for addressing vegetation that supports ticks.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we just look at alternatives for
This
addressing
seems
the
more
problem.
like a, this to me is more than an alternative landscaping program, and I would prefer to keep it minimalistic, let him get his boat to the pond, but, you know,
What would we want?
something, you know, less than this, for sure.
What would we, we're not keen on this,
Plantings.
we're not keen on the plantings on the path. What are the thoughts about the other plantings that are proposed, trees and whatever? I mean,
I'm always fine with trees.
Just flowers and irises and
so,
barren
The purple loosestrife and stuff like that, I don't know, that's pretty ubiquitous in town. You know, are you happy with them ripping it up and putting in something else, Matt?
Yes.
okay. So, Ronald,
Yes.
so we're talking about just leaving, in the area of the path, leaving the vegetation the way it is, and if it becomes a problem with stuff going up, so that there's a concern for ticks, we have another conversation. Given that, would you want to proceed with the other plantings?
I think we would probably not want to proceed with the other plantings. We were proposing the other plantings in order to satisfy the Commission's desire to see renaturalization accelerated and promoted, and we felt that by maintaining a path, that is trimming within the path, we were restricting that renaturalization in a part of the no disturb zone and felt obligated to propose additional plantings in the rest of the zone to compensate. If you're telling us not just to continue to leave the path unmaintained, run our boat and watercraft over it, and come back to you in the future if we find that it is growing and becoming a tick hazard, then I'm not sure that there's any need or justification for the effort and cost and risk of doing additional planting in the rest of the no disturb zone.
You're good.
Because we're not compensating for anything
Yeah,
at that
that's
point.
good.
That's where we're
Okay,
at.
so it sounds like we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Okay, the only issue we have, though, is again, our motivation here was to try and ensure that we would not face an issue with ticks in the future. What you're telling us is we have to come back in the future if we think there's a risk, and then it's at your discretion whether you will let us mow or trim or otherwise maintain to keep the height low, which leaves us in a jeopardy or peril position because we don't know whether a future board commission will actually
Well,
approve
I gotta
such a
tell you,
request.
everybody in town is subject to perhaps being in an area where they might get a tick. I don't think there's anywhere in town, like anybody who has grass or anything, you know, whatever, growing in their property, just might happen to run into ticks. I mean, they're in town just like poison ivy or anything else. It's like, welcome to Westford. I mean, I don't think there's really any way that you can 100% eliminate that or get around it. I would say if you're moving that boat back and forth and you're worried about ticks, then check yourself out like the rest of us do when we go out on site.
Well, that's a fair response, but that was the objective of having the path was to reduce the chances of having a tick. And although it's easy to say check yourself for ticks, to be perfectly blunt with you, I'm legally blind and don't have particularly good vision, so there is some risk to me of not being able to do an easy inspection. Now, yes, I can rely on my wife while she's willing to assist with that, but you make an assumption that exposing the risk when it could be avoided by caring for a path and minimizing growth within the path. You're right, no one can rule out the possibility of an infection 100%, but one can minimize the risk by adjusting the landscape to minimize it in a way that is compatible with your objectives to preserve the environment and promote the safety of the pond and the welfare of the wildlife in the area. That's what we were proposing. And so while you make it sound as though we were making an unreasonable request that's different from other members of the community, we actually thought we were making a reasonable request within the context of your overall objectives for the no disturb zone. Having said that, I can't resist your argument other than make the statement I just made. So,
No, that's fair. You can make the statement, but it's not changing my opinion on, I would just rather leave this minimalistic and let them take their boat back and forth over this area, not maintain it. And if they find there's an issue, then, you know, let's discuss
Just
that
call
when
Matt.
there's an
If
issue.
he finds, you know, it may not be as simple as that.
Well,
As opposed to having to come before us.
I'm just, as a mechanism to move this along, I don't know what the commissioner's thoughts are, but, is there enough for, does anybody want to make a motion to approve the alternative? That's my thought,
I would vote against this
I
alternative
understand that,
Okay, you
but,
have to bring it to closure?
right, I feel like we've kind of circulated back to previously discussed points, and there still are things on the agenda, so just as a...
So,
I just recommend to Mr. Kalin that he has an unmaintained 5-foot wide S-shaped area, and that's it. I think that would work.
And not perform any planting.
And
Right,
no
right.
alternative planting.
Right.
so,
all right.
I think that would give him, I
It's
think he'd work
basically
out
where
what
I'm
he
at.
needs.
so you're making a motion.
We're gonna vote on the plan first, which we would say no on, and then, and as an alternative.
I would say make a motion that is acceptable to you.
Because
and
this
then
is
the
just a
commission.
discussion, so we can,
Right, I would say that we authorize a establishment of a S-shaped unmaintained area between the cottage and the pond as shown on his plan.
At
And
this
that's
point.
it. And there's no need to do all of the other plantings that
The
he had
alternative
indicated.
plantings, yeah.
okay.
I'll
So-
second that.
Okay.
May I ask, what is the mechanism that we would come back to the commission? Do we have to do an NOI or an RDA in order to
Just
be
call
able to
Matt
come
on
back
the
for a
phone.
review?
I'd start it with
call
just a
Matt
phone
on
call
the
to
phone
Matt.
and tell him your
It
concern.
would be a follow-up, if you find, evidence of ticks or conditions that are of concern, whatever, what it is you would call you would call the conservation resource planner and say you'd like to have a follow-on discussion.
All right, very well.
Yeah, no need for filings or stuff like that.
And we do appreciate all the work you put into this.
Yes.
It's not like we don't recognize that.
All right, well, thank you, and thank you for your consideration.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. So, Ronald, it was unanimous, that to,
Leave it.
to basically just,
That unmaintained 5-foot
Yes.
S-shaped curve to the water that Jim had proposed.
yeah,
Period.
And that's it.
Yeah.
and that's it.
He doesn't have to do all the other
Yeah,
individual
he knows.
plantings, all that stuff.
All right, understood.
Okay?
Very good.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yep, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us for the conversation.
Very good. Thank you. Good night.
Right. Okay, moving on to our 8 PM agenda item, which is a request to work through March 31st for 124 and 128 Main Street.
Good evening, board
Ms. Joe Cataldo from 124 MSW. Just a comment about the previous discussion. One thought the board might want to think about is Earned Seed and Prairie Seed sell a hard fescue grass, which nursery growers have used that for years to keep, that doesn't grow very high, just as something to offer in that situation if somebody wants to try to get rid of taller grasses and establish a very low growing grass. It's just point of.
The fescues?
Prairie, I can give you the.
Yeah, just send it to me in an email.
Just,
Yeah.
Thanks.
anyway, thank you for your time tonight. So, just wanted to give you an update. I was here back in November to ask for the ability to work on our project, and what we did, where is it, Matt?
Orange in the middle.
Oh, thanks. So what we've been able to do is we asked to work from this line forward. We've installed this septic leaching field. We've installed this duplex foundation. This is where the office building was on the Hicks property. We have the dense graded base aggregate material in here, and we've stopped work right along here. This we might be right at this point right here with fill. We use this area to get into the back to build this. So what remains to be done is building this earthen berm. That has to be built up about 6 feet and then filled on the back side. This is the red horse barn right here that you see in the back that still exists. There's an asphalt roadway in here. We would be removing that, filling this in, and getting this ready to receive topsoil so that we can plant that in the spring growing season. We do have erosion controls in place right along here, and we also have another row of erosion controls along this property line. It's not a property line, the property line's back further, but it's right at the end of the former paddock. This line here has silt fence as well. So this is straw wattles and silt fence. This one is straw wattles. So we've had no runoff, been able to contain any soil from leaving the site, and it's been clean and orderly, and obviously we've had a great winter to work. So we just would like the opportunity, now that the weather continues to be good, is just to get this ready for springtime work.
I don't have a problem with that.
So building up the light blockage area,
Yes.
whatever it's called.
Yes, that's to prevent.
That's what you want to do for
yes.
the next month or so?
Yes.
So you'll have that ready for planting as soon as the weather is
Yes.
permissible for grass, for seeding and putting shrubs in. Okay.
It's got erosion controls
Layers.
already, so they're in place. So.
Yeah, the site's been good when I've been out.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So can I have a motion to approve the request to continue work through March 31st, 2023 at 124 and 128 Main Street?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thanks for waiting.
Moving on to our 8:05 PM agenda item, 30 Preservation Way, the removal of 4 pine trees. Ratify the enforcement order that was issued on February 1st and discuss a draft enforcement order for,
Yep, we have it.
yep,
So as a point of order, if the commission could vote to ratify the enforcement order I issued last Wednesday, February 1st.
and I have a motion to ratify the enforcement order issued on February 1st. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good evening.
Hi, so I'm Rick Gillette, the owner of the property at 30 Preservation Way.
I'm Grant McLean. I own Chestnut Tree.
Okay.
Cool.
So where do we start?
So I received a phone call last Wednesday, concerned about an excavator behind the dwelling of 30 Preservation Way. By the time I made it out there that afternoon, the chestnut tree landscape had cut down what turned out to be, and Rick had clarified with me this week, 3 pine trees and 1 hardwood, ash alder, something. It wasn't a pine tree as originally stated in the original enforcement order. And work was stopped. There was an area of disturbed soils which had gotten moved. It had, and the original enforcement order required the movement of kind of that stockpile on consolidated materials away from the wetlands edge and vegetated buffer, and install erosion control. That was done that day. This is where we lead to Mr. Gillette provided a letter this afternoon. I shared it or this morning, shared it with everybody about the history and kind of the thoughts and concerns as to how they got to, the desire to remove the trees. And I've drafted an enforcement, second enforcement order for kind of the next steps going forward, and kind of directing the planting of trees, that the erosion controls be maintained and remain in place until the disturbed area is stabilized. In conversation with Mr. Gillette, the conservation, installation of conservation posts along a 150-foot stretch of the vegetated buffer. That again, the house predates the adoption of the Westford's wetland bylaw and regulations, so it was built compliant at the time, with a minimal vegetated buffer to the wetland resource. And the other directive that was proposed and to be discussed with the commission is requiring a couple employees of Chestnut Tree and Landscape attend a educational seminar within 6 months. I provided one through MACC, but a similar may be approved by the chair and myself. If there's anything I missed, you want to kind of address why the work was done?
Yeah,
If not,
we're very sorry. We're actually environmentally conscious, despite we're sitting here. We've been here for a long time. We were actually involved in watershed volunteer work, spent thousands of hours in New Hampshire. So to be here is sort of surprising we are. But we described, and if anybody wants questions about it, but I think there were good reasons that these trees became increasingly dangerous, and that's what my letter outlined. And my wife and I had a chance to look at it. We've had lots of looks at those trees for a long time, and it said they will have to go at some point. So the biggest one had gotten to 120 feet. That's enough to slice our house in half and end up almost in the street. It was leaning against the house. We sleep in our den because of the noise and everything else that's there. So in any case, there were 4 trees that did that. So we thought we had the right to take down trees that were deemed appropriately dangerous. We did, as it turns out. And that's why we're here. But anyway, I wanted to get backdrop on it, show the property and what we did and so forth. So I think we've been good stewards of the property with that exception. And then we did put some mulch and other things that was disturbed, and that's what certainly caused the concerns that were there. We are fully supportive of what Matt's outlined, take guidance on how to do it, but we think we can make that wetland buffer better than it was before. And we're happy to do that, and we'll, figure out what we need to do go do that. So, so we're good with what was proposed to go forward, and we'll do it in the best way we can to get that back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, and Matt, and I think you probably weren't here for some of our earlier hearings. Basically, what we do is when homeowners see a risk with a tree, one of the things we do is we ask them to get an arborist involved, so that they've got somebody who can, basically give a fact-based
Rationale on why those trees should be removed.
Right, or even if it's, sometimes it's just, okay, a particular tree, maybe just take off all the dead branches and, so it's a thoughtful approach, and we're just trying to get the word out to people, and
And I think it makes sense, and Matt and I talked a lot about it. I think the
Okay.
whole continuum of, and I think there's maybe somebody on this panel who's had trees damaged from pines. Pines are scary. The thing we saw, one of the 4 trees, the hardwood was totally rotted inside. So a traditional damage needs to come down 70 feet, you know. The other trees were not rotted and so forth, but they were leaning into the house. All their branch, because of the way the house is situated, it blocks the sun, except for those trees that are on the outside of the wetlands, and those that are there get full sun from east to west all day long, but only up more than 30 feet. So they grew massive canopies that are very heavy. In my note, I noted in the last month, we've had 2 200-pound, 20-foot-long branches fall out of the big one. We were speared, our garage was speared with a 15-foot on the other side. So that's the only thing we told Matt is we don't understand, because some of the times the arborists look at it from a health as opposed to a structural and a risk, and we just tried to look at both. And what I can say is everybody we had out at the house who looked at it, and you can say there might be tree removers who have a vested interest in wanting to remove trees, but they all just said those trees are headed toward your house eventually, and we just had gone for years without it. So again, we understand. I think clarifying exactly how to establish danger and so forth that includes the danger to the house along with the structure of the tree. So we had tree experts come out. Whether they were certified arborists is a question, probably not in many cases, but they were people who knew trees. So, but you're absolutely right, we take that as
We have had, I mean, when you talk about trees leaning towards the house, that has been rationale for allowing them to be removed too. So, you know, it's just not whether, you know, the tree is compromised or damaged in any way.
Makes
So, you
perfect
know, we do
sense.
take that into account.
And the other thing that we'll do very often is we'll, especially at the edge of
Top
the
it, or-
wetland,
yeah.
is say, okay, we'll leave a 10-foot section or leave a 20-foot section. So there's, what in effect is the lower part of the trunk remains as wildlife habitat. You know, so you've got woodpeckers, you've got, so that it gets rid of the part of the tree that you're concerned about, but there is still some residual value that it provides.
Point well taken. If we had
So,
come
yeah.
before it was gone, we could have looked at creative options.
Yeah, so that's kind of,
Yeah, we were hoping to have that option earlier and we didn't. you know?
yes.
Yes.
To write another enforcement order.
Yeah.
We had another case earlier this evening. They were before us to get approval, and before the approval was granted, they went and did the work.
I was told that it's bad for us to act on innocence, but it's much worse to act proactively. I've been told not to, so we didn't go that far. We were
Yeah.
given the.
No.
Okay,
Okay, so we're.
Yeah, I think we're good.
so, okay. So we have a draft enforcement order to be issued?
Yes, and
And it seems like the homeowner is okay with it.
I have to make a couple of revisions just based upon
As
facts.
amended.
Yeah, as amended to
Yeah.
clarify,
Okay,
based
and,
upon clarifying facts.
and,
Yeah, I just wanted to put in, we do have a couple of team members who are in the process of becoming arborists now. Obviously have a lot of experience with trees and knowledge of the dangers. And when we walked around, I'm always incredibly cognizant of people. I say, listen, we live in a wooded part of the country, and you know, if it's not directly threatening the house and it's not directly threatening your playground, I recommend leaving it. We plant at least one tree for every tree we take down, just kind of as a company policy. So this was sort of an honest mistake. We were under the impression that directly threatening the house, and given the fact that the house was grandfathered into a wetland protection area, that the trees were okay to take down, but live and learn. So.
yeah,
Fair
and it
enough.
just,
Fair
well,
enough.
but the other thing is, when you're, I won't speak for other towns, but when you're in Westford, if you have a question,
Yeah.
I try to be responsive. So,
that is a, so it's, if you have any questions, you know, about a site you're doing, give us a call. We'd rather have the conversation first and have the conversation afterwards.
Yeah, no, it's good to know. Yeah.
Okay, so can I have a motion to issue the enforcement order as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, and now we have another
It's a long day.
8 o'clock agenda item, 1 Robbins Road request to work through March 31st.
This is the project within the parking lot area of 1 Robbins
yeah,
Way.
this-
Just as explained in their email, they're timing of issue, the order of conditions of it all, the order of the activity.
This is good.
Yeah.
We can do this.
Yeah.
So I'll make the motion to allow the work on 1 Robbins Road to occur between, through March 31st, 2023.
Second, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then can I have a motion to continue the public hearing for 73 Brookside Road, DEP file number 334-1814 to March 22nd, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We made it to the back.
I think page 2. Okay. The MOU. Now, Noel, the Agricultural Commission has already voted on the revised MOU? Okay.
Good with everything?
They're all set with everything?
Great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Let's go sign it.
Can I have a motion to approve the revised MOU with the Agricultural Commission?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There's something for us to sign with that too?
Just you, actually.
Just me. Ooh.
One of the chair only.
Okay. So,
What is that? The second one?
okay, I'll let you,
So the Westford Health Department is looking into updating their stabling setbacks to wetland resources, as that's within their jurisdiction. I noted that there is some, it seems mostly consistent with the Wetlands Protection Act. The one thing is the definition of agriculture under the act specifically states land within resource areas or their buffer zones presently and primarily used in the producing or raising one of the more following animals, fruits, other things. That doesn't include where the animals included but not limited to livestock, poultry, and bees, does not include the stabling of horses. Stabling of horses, you know, if you are raising a horse, you know, you're raising a horse and then you sell horses, okay, that may be considered agriculture. But where if you're just taking in somebody else's horse to, you know, have
You
a
have to
pet,
take and maintain. Yeah.
that's not under, you know, in the guidance educational seminars I've sat in on DEP, that's not agriculture.
You're not, it's not a food, it's not a food stock.
It's
not a stock for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was something that I wanted to take into account, you know, some of their proposed are actually more strict than, again, the Wetlands Protection Act's
Sounds good.
definitions for
How
agriculture.
come
I didn't
they
know
are-
if there were any.
I'm sorry.
How come they have?
Jim?
How come they want to put in regulations that are related to wetland protection into their regs? I think doing something like that, it's going to get things a little bit confused, because like, if somebody goes to the Board of Health about stabling a horse, they're going to read their regulations, and what if it's 5 years, 10 years down the road, and it's now diverged from the Wetland Protection Act?
My understanding is that they, as the, you know, as they do, they're the inspectional agents for
Horses.
for you know, livestock and everything like that. And it's under, I think it's under the department, I think it's DAR, as a, you know, it's same thing with, you know, inspecting food, you know, it's that inspectional, you know, the environmental inspections.
Why wouldn't their
which-
regulations say something like, if the stabling of horses is going to be done within, you know, in the vicinity, don't even put in a number, but in the vicinity of wetland areas or vernal pools, things like that, talk to the Conservation Commission.
That's certainly something
Like
to
that.
kind of
'Cause
just.
Then they get to you, and they get the latest and greatest, and exactly how it's interpreted.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's.
we don't want the Board of Health interpreting wetland protection.
I agree.
Or,
That's-
well, if they
It's
said
interesting.
50 feet and we say 75 feet.
They can do that if they want, but then
No,
leave us
what
out
I'm
of.
saying is if there's a difference, who has jurisdiction, the most restrictive or the least restrictive?
If it's within 100 foot of wetlands, then we have jurisdiction.
Right.
If they say
I
something
think
else.
that's-
Yeah,
I-
but
that's
if
up
we
to
have
them.
a setback if our setback says 50 and they have a setback that says 75, if ours is more restrictive,
Well, I think it's one of those cases where you need a
Well, we
permit
have
for
jurisdiction.
both, you know. It's
We have
like
jurisdiction, we do.
the ZBA, you know,
Right.
with a variance request, and, you know, you can present an application to the zoning board requesting, you know, a variance from zoning for a deck, and one also, you know, from the you know, an RDA from the commission, you know, but if both aren't granted approval, you don't have any approval.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so I think I do like Jim's idea, you know, comment about, you know, providing any activity, you know, just as more of a editorial, you know, a commentary, you know.
It's not a regulation, it's a suggestion that if you're gonna be anywhere in the vicinity
to,
of wetlands or vernal pools, talk to the Conservation
rivers.
Commission.
Yeah.
or streams.
Yeah.
Or streams.
that
Well,
kind of-
wetland resource.
Sure, sure.
You know,
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
then it's general, but
And if you're not sure, call
comes
them
ba-
anyway.
Comes back to, I think
Yes.
that certainly is the best. Because, I mean, the assistant health director in her original, or in her follow-up to me asking, she asked about piggeries, and I was like,
Who asked that?
Abby. She inquired about you know, what I thought, you know, just kind of what my interpretation of piggeries, and I'm like, well, that's actual agriculture, so that gets the reduced agricultural setback. And then she's like, but even, you know, the stockpiling of manure, and I'm like, it may actually be, you know, so if you, as the health department, you know, enforcing these permits, you know, want manure piles to be
100 yards.
200,
they could
she was
do it.
proposing 200
They could
feet.
do-
I'm like,
Sure.
I got nothing. Great, thanks. You know,
Right.
so I can certainly take Jim's comments into account. If there's anything else from the commission, you know, I know they're meeting. I think they're meeting next week. So, if anybody has any late thoughts about something, I can certainly.
I like Jim's idea.
Like, we wouldn't embed health
Exactly.
department regulations into
I
our
agree.
rules.
I agree.
Because we don't want to get involved in interpreting their regulations, so.
That's certainly
Okay.
understandable.
Moving right along.
Diane Lane.
Diane Lane.
The developer for the Diane Lane subdivision, Carlisle Road Homes, Inc., is requesting the commission consider, or through the grant of a trail easement, requesting the commission endorse the easement. It is shown on the included plan in red, mostly on the conservation restricted parcel, but also a portion of that on the homeowner's parcel E, coming by the proposed detention basin. So that's the proposed trail, or thereabouts.
Jim?
We've had a situation similar to this up in north of Route 40. I don't know if it was at Greystone or whatever, but it was a path, you know, a trail between a couple of house lots. And essentially, the house lots just became right up to the center line, and that was it. There was a lawn, and, you know, people would build a line of trees there in the middle. How do these get retained as a trail easement? We have them put a marker on it or something?
I don't know
Right
exactly.
down the center line and say the trail is 10 feet on both sides, or 5, whatever it is. You know, it's
You mean where in the easement the trail goes?
where the trail is gonna go, period. Because
Yeah.
the neighbors are just gonna move their lawns right up to the center line, and that's gonna be their property line, that'll be it. There won't be a trail. You'll just be walking down somebody's lawn.
And they won't like that.
Exactly. The hikers
Because we
won't
get
like
that all the
Yeah.
time. You're
Hikers
walking
won't
down
like
my
it,
line.
And
the
certainly-
property owners won't like it, and the hikers won't like it. The
The
hikers will walk away.
easement area shall be maintained by the grantor and/or signs. No parking shall be allowed. No structures or planting will be allowed in the easement area that will interfere with any way with access to the recreational open space or trail. I can certainly reach out to them and figure, you know, whether it's, you know, a split rail fence or something, you know, something to,
Or like conservation markers almost that say trail.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
kind of demarcating the trail.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think ultimately in the conservation restriction, there is some language as to exactly how the trail is to be marked on the conservation restricted parcel. But they are requesting,
It's really only in the area between two properties.
Yeah, but that's, yeah.
Here, this step back here, I think it'd probably be.
Yeah, right, well, yeah, I mean, parcel E is, I think, an open, this is a continuation of the open space parcel, and I think there is some, I know along this, the boundary with the lots 5 and 4, that abut the conservation restriction, or the conservation restricted area, there is to be little diamond, markers, yeah, just emblems or something, kind of denoting that.
And, yeah, but I see Jim's point, because part of, especially with lot 4, part of their property is under that trail easement, and, you know.
Actually, it isn't, and so the trail is on parcel E solely.
But
I understand your point that they may think that it's.
Well, but there's if the red denotes the easement.
No, the red was me just calling it out
okay.
for everybody.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to see where they were proposing.
Okay.
Making it look pretty.
Yeah. Doll it up on my
Sorry.
Come on. So it's just the dashed line, which is solely, yeah.
So the dashed line is basically what we were being asked to approve.
Yes, to accept an easement of.
Accept.
Approve, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think it's very good to have it clearly marked where the trail is, so that as people are looking at the property, there's no question in their mind.
That's a very fair point.
Yep.
Okay.
Not a massive trail, but still.
That could be a motion
Sometimes
to accept and endorse the trail easement.
Motion?
Okay, so can I have a motion to accept and endorse the trail easement?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Do we say with markers or something, or?
Oh.
I don't think, I mean, the legal document, I can ask them to do that, on.
All right, okay.
Have it.
Sorry to interrupt the vote.
Okay.
So all those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And this is the one with 3 to sign?
Yes, there are 3, thank you.
Right ahead.
The next is regarding the trail at Cloverleaf Lane. They requested that a revised trail easement be prepared, and I first thought that the commission should accept the revised trail location as a minor modification. On the plan on the screen, it shows the proposed trail easement in the location of the gray. The existing, or the original trail easement as shown on the approved plan in the order of conditions continued this way before meeting up with the existing trail cart path and continuing on. So it's moving from this location here to straightening out within the water easement, the water and utility easement. And I've went out and took a photo and tried to graphically represent it as best as possible. The green is the trail easement as shown on the approved plan in the order of conditions. Within the water easement, they wanted to relocate it straight line. It is outside still outside the 50. Again, they were proposing to, minimal vegetation clearing in order to do it. And this was the corner of the change. So if the commission could vote to approve the minor modification for the trail easement on lot 5.
Can I have a motion?
This would be another one that would cry out for some kind of marking, especially given that.
I think in the order we required, I think there's a fence being proposed along the back of the lot now. So
Go on the outside of the fence right along.
yep, and
That
then
would be
between
good.
the 2 lots, I think they were proposing a split rail fence or something of equivalent.
So, can I have a motion to approve the request for a minor modification of trail easement?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And, can I have a motion to accept the revised trail easement?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There is one certificate of compliance with which has been requested since the last meeting we held. It is for 334-1132, located at 18 Lawson Road. The homeowner, when originally proposed, wanted to repoint the existing wall along Nabnasset Lake. I think they were putting in a new well, building a garage addition and replacing the septic system. Only the repointing of the wall along Nabnasset Lake and the well relocation occurred. They will be coming back before the commission with an RDA for the installation of a new septic system shortly. And I recommend the commission vote to issue a certificate of compliance for 334-1132.
Can I have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 334-1132?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes of January 11th. Have people had a chance to review them? Jim?
Yes, I have two comments. Page 1, public hearing for JVB Realty, 4549 and 55 Powers Road. I have a suggested text in here because there was some confusion as far as the, who is the applicant for the RDA, because all the different properties are owned by different organizations or people, and some of them had been updated in the town's database, some had not been. So my suggested wording is to say something like, Gazzo noted that RDA Form 1 wasn't signed by the owners of number 49, but drilling was to occur there. The applicant said there is an easement. No easement was provided with the RDA. So that's one clarification of what happened. And then the next one I have is on page, oh, here it is. Page 4, at the bottom for public hearing, Gilmet, 5 Island Path Road. Near the end of that paragraph, it says, Harold said that in filing the Chapter 91 license application, approval was needed from a harbor master, or it says an order of conditions. Well, we don't approve Chapter 91 through an order of conditions, so I think instead of an order of conditions, you should say municipal official, because then it matches up with Chapter 91. License application approval is needed from a harbor master or municipal official. So those two wordings, if it's okay, I could give these to Matt.
I'm good with them.
Okay.
Yeah, works for me.
Any other corrections? Can I have a motion to approve the January 11th, 2023 minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And for the January 30th, the meeting minutes of our virtual meeting, January 30th, 2023.
Nope, those are good.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the January 30th, 2023 meeting?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay.
Wasn't here.
Yep.
Still can vote. You can. Procedurally, you can.
Okay. So, no site visits to record, none to schedule, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.